Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Better late than never. Honestly, we've battled with this, but this will be worth it. Let me tell you, this will be worth it. But before we get into all of that, let's get some housekeeping done. Please don't forget to like, comment on, and share the stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit the bell icon, and you'll be given alerts on any content as and when we add it to the channel, such as this. And this is a beauty, this one. We thank you very much indeed for your support. Go on, Duke.
Well, speaking of
your mic's going in and out, old son. Talking of support, please consider supporting the Iron Supporting Food Bank charity. This is a charity that operates in the Newham Borough area, trying to help families that are struggling to feed their families in this cost of living crisis. If you guys could see your way clear to giving your support to this very noble cause, there is the Just Giving link. I will put it in the live chat momentarily. No donation is too small. As always, guys, we thank you very much indeed for your time. Why are you here? You are here for a very special Q&A with the one and only Mr. David Cross. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good, Rob. Well, I am now that we've got on. I was panicking. I told you last week that I wasn't good with technology, but obviously that's correct.
Listen, we battled with it. We got to the bottom of it, and that's all that matters. If we need to delay it, then it's fine. For you, David, not a problem. Not a problem at all.
What do you mean you'll delay it? What does that mean?
Well, we was going to start at 8 o'clock, so we just...
Oh, I see. I'm with you. No, it's just
yeah.
Quite often my wife delays our sex life, so I just wondered where you were going.
Oh, goodness. But you're keeping well yourself, David?
If I was any better, I'd be on drugs, Rob. I'm fine.
Brilliant. All good.
Oh, dear.
Duke, what have you got around your neck?
Well, I'll tell you what.
I've got the scarf that somebody gave me in the 1980 FA Cup final.
Well, David, actually, you say that. I was only 18 months old when obviously the FA Cup final in 80 went on.
Right.
And my dad, who's watching this, hopefully, if my mum's managed to log him in and everything else, he actually bought me this for the 1980 FA Cup final. And I've had this ever since. I was an 18-month-old. My old man got me this. I've hunted high and low for a replica of the shirt that you guys wore on that day, and I cannot for the life of me find it. So this will have to do. But this was given to me by my old man in 1980. In fact, he got this for me as an 18-month-old the day of the cup final. So this is going to be, 42?
It's interesting you say that, Rob, because I've been telling people for years that I was born in 1970. and not 1950. But then some West Ham fan twigged that meant I must have been 9 when I played in the cup final. And I had a beard, so I've been scuppered with that.
Curse is foiled again.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, my dad started me down this road of being a hammer on that day that you guys won the 80 FA Cup final, and I've suffered ever since.
yeah. Well, yeah, you had some good times and some not so good. But I'm surprised you want me on here, because if you're talking about the latest stuff that's going on, because I live in Manchester, I mean, I don't come down to the matches. I'm often, or not very often, would see a match on TV, but it's not easy to judge what's going on when you're watching it on TV like you could in the stands. So I feel a little bit self-conscious that there'll be people, our fans, your viewers, will be listening to me and think, what on earth is he talking about? Because I don't see the games. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just hoping that your content for this evening is about our time back
yes.
in those times, rather than up till now. Obviously, as I say, I just don't watch games unless they're on television, and I know there are a lot on telly, but you don't see the games properly on the TV. If the camera's on the one goal, the opposition goal, I want to see what our fullbacks are doing. and you don't get that. Whereas you can if you're watching the match, so you know who's doing what. And I'm way out on that. You know, I'm way out. I don't often get to see. The last time I came down to see a live game, I think, was when we opened the Billy Bonds Stand.
Oh, so you have been to London Stadium. I wasn't sure if you'd been to London Stadium.
Yeah, we get invited down. We get invited down. Dan Francis, would that name ring any bells?
Not personally, no.
He's the player liaison officer.
Okay.
So he's the lad who, if he wants 3 or 4 people going down to the match for the hospitality suites, Dan will ring me up, say, Crossy, can you come down? And I'll come down and then I'll watch a live match. But that hasn't happened for a couple of years now. So since then, and because I live in Manchester, obviously, and the last 12 months, clearly, because the price of petrol. I mean, a train cost me about 200 quid to get down and back. Petrol, but it just hasn't been easy to just get down there and watch a game. So I've been out of the loop, really. So like I'm saying, I don't want to insult our fans who go every week, know everything that's going on, and I'm here up in Manchester talking a lot of garbage that doesn't.
We're here to discuss you, David. You are the main event. You are the centerpiece.
So presumably it'll last 3 minutes, this then, will it?
No. Right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you guys might be aware of this, because you might have been around when David Cross signed for West Ham United, which I have got here, to be precise, and you can correct me if I've got this wrong, David. On the 9th of December 1977, you became our club's record signing at the time for £180,000. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct, apart from one thing, Rob, which is that I signed on the 8th of December.
Okay.
And that was my 27th birthday.
A very good birthday present.
December the 8th is my birthday. So, I signed for West Ham. The best birthday present I ever had, really, coming down there. So, yeah, but it was 180,000, which I suppose was a lot of money.
A lot of money
back then. It was the best move I made. I mean, I played for a lot of clubs. Obviously, everyone will understand that. But coming to West Ham, and even though I was very, very hesitant about signing for West Ham, and I spoke to John Lyle about that before I signed, and I said, look, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not that I'm not sure. I'm absolutely certain that I'm not a West Ham player. You know, I'm not a silky smooth player like you've got Trevor Brooke and Alan Dev. Well, Dev actually had only just arrived at the club anyway. But the traditional West Ham players, I knew I wasn't one of those. And John reassured me, said, Dave, the reason I'm signing you is because you're not a typical West Ham player, and you are what we need. You'll get in the box. You don't mind getting hurt to score a goal, and we need that. So he said the fans will be fine with you because you work hard. And you get in the box, and you, as I say, you get on the end of stuff. And we've got creative players. We just need a finisher.
You was obviously at West Bromwich Albion before you signed for us, and obviously you referenced John Lyle. What was the reason? How did the move come about? Were they sort of like pushing you out the door? Did you agitate for a move? How did it all come about?
It came about because, and oddly enough, my debut for West Ham was at the Hawthorns against West Brom, who had just left 3 days ago, which is a strange way to enter a new club, by playing against your old mates who you just left. It came about because our manager, Ronnie Allen, who was a very famous West Brom player in the 50s, played in the 1954 World FA Cup final, the 4-3 Preston game, and he was the West Brom's manager. He'd taken over from Johnny Giles. Johnny Giles had signed me 12 months prior to this. But in that summer, he signed Laurie Cunningham. Mm-hmm. He signed Brendan Batson, and he signed a lad who no one had ever heard of called Cyril Regis. I got injured on the first game of the season at Sunderland. I got injured, done my ankle, and I was going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks. And they put Cyril into the team, and Cyril was you'll have seen Cyril play, a huge, big lad. But he'd come from Hayes United or Hayes Athletic, the North London amateur team, semi-pro team, and he was very raw. Cyril was really raw, but they stuck him in. It's because I couldn't play. I started the game on the Saturday at Sunderland, injured. Tuesday night we had a game, and I couldn't play. And Ronnie Allen stuck Cyril Regis in, and he had a brilliant game. I mean, he was very raw. He was very unorthodox because he was really come from amateur football, but because of that, he was a revelation because he didn't do what everyone else did, and he just took centre halves on, battered them out of the way. He didn't actually score, but he was so popular. The fans loved him, and I was there watching the match and loving the fact that we were winning that game. But it dawned on me that if Cyril was pulled out of the team and they put me back in, it wouldn't be a popular move. And I knew that West Ham were interested in me because I'd spoke to Ron Greenwood and John Lyle 12 months earlier when I left Coventry and went to West Brom. And I knew they were interested in me. So I just said to Ronnie Allen the next day, I said, listen, you need to let me go. And he said, why? What do you mean? You giving up? I said, no, I'm not giving up. But I said, I can see the script here. I said, the three black lads, and it became the Black Revolution. If you remember, that they were the 3 degrees, Cyril, Laurie and Brendan, really popular and good players, good lads as well. And it was pretty obvious to me that I didn't want to be playing in the reserves when I'm 26 years of age. And I just said, look, I think West Ham would still be interested in me because they tried to sign me a year ago when I came to West Brom rather than go to West Ham. So anyway, Ronnie Allen phoned me up the next day and he said, I've spoke to John Lyle at West Ham and he is interested. Would you fancy going down there? So that was how it came about. Fair.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that my recollection of, because you obviously did the Amazon Prime bit with Canning Town Len, everyone's second team.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And I remember watching you, and I think you referenced that when you walked through the door at Upton Park, I don't think the team were doing particularly well, and you was walking into a little bit of turbulence in terms of the league performance.
No, there was no turbulence, but we hadn't won. We hadn't won the game. And I said December the 8th was the Wednesday. So the 9th, 10th, so the 11th of December was 15, 18 games in, would you think? From August to December, and we hadn't won a game. And we did win on that Saturday. Trevor scored the winner. 1-0, and I just felt that maybe just the new signing, the lads had gone out there and it gave them a bit of a kick up the backside, and they won the first game of the season on, it might be the 10th of December, it might be the 11th, but if you go back and check, you'll find they beat Man United 1-0 and Trevor scored. And I wasn't watching the match then. I was back home back up in Birmingham, sorting my house out, sorting all my stuff out to come back down on the Monday to train. But I felt good that they'd actually won the first game of the season. It was the team with Brian Robson in it, Derek Hales. So we're going back to those two up front. In fact, I think we played 3 up front at that time because that was something I'd never really done until I'd moved to West Ham. I'd never played in a 3. Interesting. It was always 4-4-2, the teams I'd played in. And we played as a 3. So it was me, Pop, and Derek Hales. And so because they won that game, I felt as though, when I went in on that Monday, I felt a bit better because it might, as I say, it might kick the lads up the backside. We've got a new striker. He does score goals. That'll be good. And they went out and beat Man United. So there was no turbulence. It was just that, I'll tell you who else was at the club, John Radford. Mm-hmm. And the first person I saw when I walked into the dressing room on Monday morning, the first person who spoke to me was John Radford. John said, and he was an iconic Arsenal player, wasn't he? From prior to his West Ham days. And Raddy came. Sorry, go on.
He won the double in '71 with them. Didn't he?
He did. But Raddy came up to me and he said, "Listen," he said, "I've been here 12 months. I haven't scored a goal. I've had an absolute nightmare." He said, "It's a lovely club." He said, "You're going to take my place." He said, "I just wish you all the best." He said, "I just hope it works out better for you than it did for me." And I thought that was a real nice thing to say, for a man walking into a dressing room and looking at a bloke who effectively I'm taking his place and he's going to not get the sack, but have to move on.
Yeah.
So Raddy was really good with me, and that gave me a bit of a lift. But no, there's no turbulence at all. It's just they hadn't won. They'd hadn't drawn a few games, but hadn't won one until that Saturday. And I signed on the Thursday, won on the Saturday, and I turned up for training on the Monday.
Instant impact then.
Do you know, just as I said that about Pop Robson, do you know why he was called Pop? You know why?
I've heard a couple of different stories, but you go on, David. Yep.
Okay, when he was a young kid and playing for Sunderland, playing for Newcastle, and he was in digs with two other lads in digs in Newcastle, and every morning his landlady always gave them Rice Krispies for breakfast. They'd never had anything other than Rice Krispies, these three lads. And so the senior players knew that story, and they all gave each of them a nickname. One of them was nicknamed Snap, one was nicknamed Crackle, and Brian was nicknamed Pop. And that's how he got his nickname.
Well, it's interesting you say that, David, because Duke, we've got a question, haven't we? A video question that my brother put in, which is also to do with a nickname, if I remember correctly. So, Duke, if you want to hit the play button on that one.
On Ben's, yeah?
Yes, please, mate.
I'm just searching it out. There it is. Here we go.
Mr. Cross, I do hope you're keeping well, and it's a pleasure to be able to field a couple of questions to yourself. I know Ben Gates. I always like to do a couple of questions unrelated to football, because I'm sure everyone's going to ask you football and West Ham related questions. So my questions to you are, obviously your nickname was Psycho. Did you like that nickname? Do you think it was well warranted, and did it motivate you in any way? And also, Psycho being a famous movie from the 60s, what's your favourite movie?
There you go. So the Psycho nickname, David.
Yeah. I remember, I think the Psycho thing came about maybe 12 months after I arrived at the club, and we played, I'm fairly certain we played at Cardiff, and I got very near our fans in the crowd, and I hit, I think it was their left fullback, and I hit him quite hard, and as we got up, I hit him again, and I was right next to our fans, and as I got up, I was facing the fans. I was only probably a yard away from our group of fans, and one fan just said to me, he looked at me, and I was fairly close to him, and he looked at me, and he just gave me a bit of a look, and he just said, "You're a psycho, aren't you?" And I just laughed, because in a way he had summed me up, because whatever I was off the field, I mean, like I'm pretty sure I'm a decent lad off the field, and everyone said that, you know. In fact, when I was at Rochdale as a kid, the manager told me, "Dave, if you want to be a footballer, you've got to be a bit nastier than you are. You're too nice. You've got to be harder and more aggressive." So the fact that he said that to me kind of resonated with me, and I just laughed, and I thought, yeah, he's probably right, actually, because even though I'm a nice lad, polite, you know, I was brought up to be a polite lad and very polite, you know, if the women were about, you know, don't swear and stuff like that. So I was a really nice lad off the field, but I did become a villain on the field, and I was aware of that. And I was aware that I had to be, because I wasn't a silky smooth Trevor Brooking or an Alan Devonshire. I was me, and I had to be, I had to be something else. And I realised early on in my career that if I didn't become as hard as the centre halves I was playing against, and they were going to, they'd run me into the ground. So the fact that lad said that to me, and I laughed, and I thought, yeah, that he's probably right, that guy, because I do switch on to be a villain as I walk on that football field at 5-3. And then somehow it just stuck. So it wasn't great when I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, in a restaurant down in the East End, and two lads on the Saturday night, and I'm trying to impress this like beautiful looking lawyer who earned loads of money. And when you're a Lancashire lad, that's a big thing when you're getting married. But I just started going out with Christine, and I know someone's going to say you've married someone called Chris and you're called Cross. But I'd met, just trying to impress Christine, what a nice lad I was. And this guy came up, yeah, Psycho, how are you doing, mate? I put my head down, and my wife, Christine, said, what did that guy mean there? I said, I don't know. I think he's mistaken me for someone else, Christine.
My word.
So anyway,
your other half's from the East End, is she?
pardon?
Your good lady wife is an East Ender, is she? You met her
No,
while
sorry.
you went
She'd come down. She'd come down.
I see.
For the weekend. No, she's from the same town as me, Haywood. In fact, literally, we lived 300 yards apart, and I never met her till I was 30.
Incredible.
She lived in the same village as me, but I'd not met her until I went home one summer, and I bumped into her. And I have the feeling that the fact that I was kind of a fairly wealthy first division footballer might have just been more of an influence on me than my good looks. So in fact, funnily enough, the very minute my football career finished, I think my good looks went, because women stopped talking to me after being a footballer, and I wasn't one anymore. But yeah, anyway, so Christine was from the same village as me, and we had our 40th anniversary last Saturday.
Congratulations.
A ruby wedding. Yeah.
Well done.
And I could tell you a story about that, actually.
Go on.
Shall I do? Well, we went for a walk. Can I swear on this? Be careful.
Yeah, you can do what you want, mate. You can do he does it all the time.
Right. So, I mean, I don't want to offend any kids or upset any kids, but anyway, we went for a walk on our anniversary last weekend. And we went through a field. I mean, a lot of people have been walking in the last 12 months, haven't they? Because, the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So went for a walk, and as we got to the top of this field, Christine said, down there at the bottom of the field there, where that railway line is, do you remember that? Right. I said, should I? She said, that's the first place we made love when we were courting 40 years ago. Oh, right. And it did come back to me. And anyway, I thought, I'll take a chance here. So what do you think? She said, well, there's no one around. We could have another go at it if you want. So we went down to am I going too far for the juniors?
No, that's fine. No.
So, anyway,
keep going.
Anyway, we got down to the bottom, and it all came back to me from, all those years ago, that what it was, there was the bottom of the field, then a grass embankment up about 4 foot, then a fence, and then the railway line on top. So it all came back to me that what we had to do, as we were lying against this embankment, was that I had to get hold of the fence to give myself a bit of purchase. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And anyway, as I say, it all came back to me. And then as we were walking away after we'd done what we did, Christine said to me, she said, Dave, she said, you were more active and vigorous today than you were all those years ago. I said, yeah, well, that fucking fence wasn't electrified. So anyway, that was my wedding anniversary present.
He fits right in, Rob, doesn't he? Fits right in with all of this. It's brilliant.
Honestly.
They're all true stories, mine, by the way. They're all.
David, don't do that to me, please. My sides, honestly. Have we got anything in the live chat that any of the people watching?
Mate, we've got 21 currently in the questions in the live chat. You keep starring, and I'll bring them up as and when. The first one we've got. We'll go with Happy. There you go, mate. What are you doing? Get out of it.
Sorry.
Stop pressing buttons, you. So, question from Happy, David. She wants to know what you thought of that awful VAR decision from Saturday. You probably, whether you saw it or not, I don't know, but you must have heard about it.
I didn't, but I have read all the Twitter things about it, and everyone, even I think opposition players, said it was wrong, didn't they? I haven't seen it, and again, that's probably wrong that I'm on your podcast not having watched that, but
no.
I didn't see it, but I don't like VAR. I really don't. I don't think it's. I mean, it's now getting to the stage where it not only is it not right, it's almost like gone the other way, hasn't it? And I mean, people talking about corrupt, and I wouldn't go that far, but I've not liked it from the minute it started. It certainly wouldn't have helped me. I would have been, a lot of my goals would have been wiped off, because the big thing I had about being a goal scorer was I was a goal scorer in the 6-yard box. You know, mine were tap-ins, heading balls out of keepers' hands, getting hurt, getting smashed about. But for me, that's a proper number 9. Someone who gets in the 6-yard box and gets in where it hurts. I think I scored 1 goal in my whole career for West Ham from outside the box. And I genuinely feel that a centre forward and number 9, that's your job. If I take their back 4 into the 6-yard box, then that means the cut back from Alan Devonshire or Trevor Brooking is a walk-in for our midfield players, because I've taken their back 4 right on their line. So it's just a tap-in from 12 yards for our midfield players coming on. And I genuinely felt that was my job, to get in there, get in where it hurts, don't care what happens to me, just so long as we score. Better for me if I score, but also, and again, this may be the psycho thing where that lad got it right in Cardiff all those years ago, that I really wanted to score a goal in the 6-yard box and hurt their goalkeeper as well. Because back in those days, there's only one sub, and they never had a goalkeeper who's a sub. So if I hit their goalkeeper and he had to go off, they'd have to put one of their outfield players in goal. So that was something I always, and it sounds vicious, I know, and it probably sounds horrible, but that's what it's like in those days. I wanted to score, but I wanted to take their keeper out as well.
Has the game got too soft, in your opinion? Because, I mean, now it seems that any contact seems to engender sort of like a reaction from the people getting the contact of, my leg's about to fall off. You know what I mean? That never really seemed to happen in your day. I mean, is it got too soft?
Well, I think in my day, Rob, you tried your best to show that you weren't hurt.
Yeah.
You know, if I got whacked by Larry Lloyd, Martin Buchan, any of the Liverpool centre halves who were about at the time, Tommy Smith, who was a hard case. I wanted to get hit by them and get up and show our fans that I wasn't hurt, even though I was. You know, Christ, I wanted to get up and so that you showed their centre half as well that he hadn't hurt you. That you know he's got to do it a bit harder if he wants to put you out. So my big thing was to make sure that people didn't think I was hurt. And now I think they do the best, the players, to show that they are hurt. And that is a big difference. I know I can think, I won't then mention a name, but I can think of a Manchester City player who used to play for Aston Villa, who seems to just go down at the drop of a hat and roll over 3 or 4 times. And, you know, in our day, if one of our players did that at Upton Park, you know, a West Ham player, we'd be telling him to get up as well. Yeah. You know, you would, because I always felt that the fans wanted to feel that there's someone out there that represented them. And I wanted to represent those lads on the North Bank and the South Bank and the Chicken Run. I wanted them to think that, you know, they would like to be me. And I know they would have loved to have been me with a claret and blue shirt on playing at Upton Park. But I wanted to kind of get that across, that I was them. I was representing them. And, you know, they'd be hard case lads probably from down the docks. And, you know, if someone hit them on a Monday morning at work, they wouldn't just lie down and roll over, would they? So I wanted to be them. And it sounds a bit odd, doesn't it, this conversation? I didn't really know it was going this way, but I did want to represent our fans. And our fans were fantastic. You know, they were so loyal, weren't they? I mean, I remember John Lyle saying to me when we signed, and I made my home debut, and he said, even if we lose, but we play well and we've given everything, the fans will clap you off. And I said to John, I said, yeah, I bet they do. But he was right. He was right. They did. You know, a couple of games we didn't win, and the fans clapped us off because we played well and we were a bit unlucky. But they didn't want you to play the wrong way. The fans wanted you, you know, the West Ham way, really. You know, and I was happy, and not happy, but honoured to represent those people, you know, who were on the terraces. Because if I hadn't been a footballer, I would have been one of them. I wouldn't have been at Upton Park, but I would have been at a football ground watching my team, And I would have wanted to see my players out there doing the best they could. And if it didn't work, fair enough. But not giving 100% wouldn't be good enough for me. And even whatever I was, as I say, I wasn't a typical West Ham player. I wasn't silky smooth like Trevor and Dev, but I was honoured to be a West Ham player and represent those people who paid to watch us.
Absolutely, and that's all we ask for, isn't it? We just want players that leave it all on the pitch, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as you say, you lived our dream, David. To be fair, I mean, all of us would. I'd give me right arm. I'd actually pawn off one of my two kids, I suppose, if I was given up a chance to.
I'd give your right arm as well. Actually,
I'd actually sell your kids. I've met your kids. Rob.
Thanks.
I'd actually sell your kids for a chance.
I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous. But no, I understand that, and that was one thing I did understand it. I got it. I got the thing at West Ham quite early. I got it. I remember meeting. I think we played a home game one Wednesday night, and we went back to. I'll tell you what, it was Frank Lampard's the opening of Frank Lampard's nightclub. Down in Canning Town, I think it was. Frank had a pub, didn't he? Had a pub that the lads went to after the game down in Plowstone.
Right.
But he got a nightclub and he opened it, and we all went down after the match. And I walked in there, and Bobby Moore was in there, and I played against Bobby Moore, but he was in the club, and I bought. So I didn't drink a great deal then. I mean, and Frank Lampard actually taught me. He said, "What do you drink?" And this isn't in the club. It just when we were training, after training, he said, "What do you drink?" And I said, "Well, if I'm back up north, I'll have a pint." He said, "Don't drink pints down here." I said, "Right, why not?" He said, "Don't drink pints." He said, "Just drink a half or drink a bottle." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if any of our fans see you and you haven't been playing particularly well, they'll think, they think you shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't. If they see you with just a bottle of beer, that's okay, because then you can have 3 bottles of beer and, that's your pint and a half, but don't have a pint." And I took that on. Anyway, in this nightclub of Frank's, I got myself a drink. I just said, "Can I have a bottle of lager?" I had a bottle of Hart lager, and I said, "How much is that?" And the barmaid said, "It's been paid for." I said, "Oh, right." I said, "Oh, is it Frank?" As he set up the lad, he said, "No, that man at the end of the bar, the blonde fella," and it was Bobby Moore. And I looked, and I couldn't believe Bobby Moore would buy me a drink. And as I looked at him and showed him my bottle of lager, and he lifted his bottle up and just and he came over to me, and he said, "I'm glad we've signed you." I said, "Bloody hell," I said, "that's a flattering thing for me, a lad from England, to get."
So he would have been at Fulham at the time, wouldn't he, David?
He was, yeah. No, he might even have been retired, had he? Yes, 77.
Yeah.
It would have been probably January, February time, 78. I don't know where Bobby would have been. Probably had he retired by then?
Let me check. Hang on.
But anyway, he came over to me and I just said, he said, "I'm glad we signed you." And I said, "Bloody hell, thanks for saying that." I said, "But I'm not really one of the West Ham." He said, "No," he said, "but you're what we need." And it was we, it wasn't you, it wasn't you, and it wasn't West Ham, it was we. It was, "You're what we need. We need a proper number 9. He said, "We've got Derek Hales, we've got Brian Robson, but they're not real number 9s, they're real number 10s in some respect, who play off somebody like yourself." And he said, it's a really good move for the club. And I thought, bloody hell, Bobby Moore said that to me. And I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't wait to come home that weekend back to Manchester and, be able to tell my brothers that Bobby Moore had said something like that to me.
Yeah. I'm just looking here. He played his final pro game in England for Fulham, 14th of May, 77. So that was before you signed for West Ham.
It was. I signed on December the 8th, 1977. Yeah. So I think would he have gone to America? Would he?
He, according to what I'm reading, he signed his last professional contract as a player. He actually went in April 1978. He joined Danish side Herning Freemad, and then he also had, obviously, you referenced it there, a spell in the United States as well. Yeah. So he was probably sort of between gigs, I suppose.
Yeah, I think he probably was. But I mean, I was 15 when England won the World Cup. Never dreaming I would play against lads like him. You know, seeing him on the field, Jeff Hurst, Martin Peters, you know, the 3 West Ham lads, but all those, I mean, they were like heroes to me, a 15-year-old. I never dreamt I would be a professional footballer, not even if I was, that I would be playing at that level. But for Bobby Moore to come over to me, buy me a drink and say he was pleased I'd signed for West Ham. Christ, can you imagine what I felt like?
You must have felt so proud. The captain, World Cup winning captain, FA Cup winning captain, European trophy winning captain coming up to you and going, I'm glad we got you.
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Must have felt 10 foot tall.
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps then.
Yeah, I did.
Just hearing you say that,
I did feel that way. And in some respects, I kind of thought, he's probably said that. He probably says that to everyone who West Ham signed. But I felt it was a genuine thing that he'd said. And I had played against him, so he probably knew. I didn't, you know, I didn't want centre-halves to have an easy day when I played against them. I wanted them to look on a Monday morning and think, oh, who we're playing on Saturday? Oh, Christ, we're playing West Ham. That prick's playing up front. You know, that's what I wanted. That I wanted that. I want them to think that I was that nuisance who was going to not give them, you know, maybe not score against them, but they knew they would have a hard time playing against me because that was something I knew I had to add to the game because I wasn't good enough to be, you know, a silky player on the ball. I knew what I had to be to earn a good living. And the fact that John Lyles signed me and took me to West Ham was a huge boost for me. It really was. And for Bobby Moore to say that, you know, was incredible.
Brilliant. Duke, we've got another. We got a good few video questions for you, actually, David, and for people that have sent in little nuggets. So, Duke, I think Jake's the next one out of the blocks, isn't he?
I'll say we'll go with Jake up next. Yeah, here we go.
Hi Gatesy, hi David, I hope you are both well. It's Jake from West Ham Unofficial here. Just a quick question from me today. It's a little bit outside of the box, but I wanted to ask you, would you get more nervous when you were playing any sort of game in your career, or do you get more nervous now when you watch your daughter play cricket? Which one would you get more nervous about? Thank you very much.
So, in case anybody doesn't know, David's daughter Kate is a professional cricketer. She's played for England. She plays for Lancashire. She plays for Manchester Originals in the 100. I actually saw her the other day. She was in the stands. They had the TV footage, and they actually went to your daughter, David.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's a great question. And what's the guy called? The little lad who?
That's young Jake. West Ham Unofficial.
Well, I think I might have spoke to Jake before on podcast. I might have. No, he's right. I wasn't nervous. I mean, as a footballer, you've got the nerves, but you're in control of it. You know, I mean, when I walked out on the field at Upton Park and you got that crowd cheering you, you got everything going for you. You know, it gave you a lift straight away. I mean, but watching Kate, it's awful. It's terrible. The one good thing is that, I mean, my son's a very good cricketer as well. Bobby, my son, he's late 30s now. And Bobby was, as a kid, he was like at Manchester United's academy and that kind of stuff. But he wasn't strong enough, but he was a very good cricketer. He played cricket for Lancashire as a second team player and then occasionally in the first team as 12th man. But he's an opening batter. And I mean, Bobby can nick one early on, first ball, and walk, and he's out. Watching Kate, she can bowl her first ball and gets hit for 6, but she can come back next ball and get a wicket. So there is some comeback in that respect. So even though I'm always very nervous when I watch Kate, whether she's the captain of the Manchester Originals and she is playing for England, it's very nerve-wracking because I'm not in control of that. But as I say, it is easier having your daughter being a bowler than it is having your son as a batter, because the game's over in potentially 2 seconds, isn't it, as an opening batter, whereas you can come back as a bowler. So, and I know Kate knows her job and she gets it in the right places, and she does move the ball around a bit now that she doesn't move it in the air, but she does move it off the pitch. And I do feel that even though she might have had a bad first over or a first set, as it is in the 100, that she can come back and recover and get players out. So it is a really good question, but yeah, I feel much more nervous watching Kate.
Oh, it's just popped into my head because my brother Ben, his video question earlier, he mentioned that he was the one that asked the psycho question. He also asked a sort of sub part, not football related, but what was your favourite film?
Oh, he did ask that, yeah. Oh, wow, that's a difficult question, that, isn't it? I would say, might be a bit out of your time, your lads. No, maybe not. A film called Deliverance.
Yes, yes. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, exactly. With the banjo. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that really made me sit up and think. That film. Yeah, it was a real odd film, wasn't it?
Squeal like a pig.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd like to think about that, and probably come up with a film that I did like. Yeah, it's a difficult question to just be asked, isn't it? Like, and come out with an answer straight away. Yeah. I really enjoyed Deliverance because it was so strange. I'll think it through, and hopefully something will come to me as we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of getting back to your West Ham career. Obviously, as I say, you signed in '77, record signing for the club. We obviously eventually got relegated, sadly, dropped down to the second division. And there was a little bit of a period of transition, shall we say, of certain players being moved on, other players coming in to replace them and all the rest of it. But obviously in 1980, there was something fairly big that happened. Can you remember that, David?
I had the 30th birthday. December the 8th, 1980.
Something might have happened in North London around about May time.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. That Wembley, wasn't it? The Wembley.
That's the one.
Yeah, I do remember that.
It does make you very proud. I mean, sort of like there's only 35 players that have ever had an FA Cup winners medal for West Ham United. Yeah. Because obviously in '64 there was no substitute. It was just the 11. Sure. Yeah. 75 and 80 it was the 11 plus one sub, so it's 35. And 3 of those number have actually won it twice, and that was obviously Bonds, Brooking, and Lampard. They did 75 and 80. So there's actually only 32 people that ever got medals. Some of them are no longer with us, like the great Bobby Moore.
Yeah.
And you're one of a select band of West Ham players.
I'd never ever thought of it that way, to be honest. I'm just so proud to. I mean, when I was a kid growing up I was born in 1950. First FA Cup final I ever watched, I think, was '59. I think that was Nottingham Forest versus. Can't think who they played for us. I think that was the first game I ever watched and was conscious of it. I remember the Manchester United '58 and the Manchester United '57 against Aston Villa, but only as a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. But I remember the Forest game. It wasn't Tottenham, was it? I'm trying to think who they played for us. But there was only one game on television in those days, and it was the FA Cup final. And there's no Sky, there was no general live football other than England games. You'd see England games live, but the FA Cup final was the only, and you sat there in front of your television from 8 o'clock that morning and watched it all, watched the players' wives being interviewed, see what the lads were doing on the morning. Were they having a brew? Were they having a walk around the park just to get the nerves out of the way? And that was the only day that you really was conscious of as a little boy growing up. So to play in the cup final was like incredible for me. To think I was playing in the cup final, that wasn't quite as big then, was it? At that time, it probably isn't even as big now, is it? Than it was in 1980. The FA Cup final on Saturday. Oh well, I'd rather go to cricket. You were ironed in, weren't you? You had to go and sitting in your telly and watch the FA Cup final back in those days. So to play in it was incredible. I mean, the disappointing thing, and it sounds ridiculous to say this, for someone who's got a cup winner's medal in his hand, if you like, was that I was really disappointed that on the Friday, John Lyle asked me about what was going to happen tomorrow. And then at 2:00 on the day of the game, an hour before kickoff, he got me and Stuart Pearson into the bathroom, not the changing rooms, the shower room, if you like, at Wembley. And he just said to me, Dave, I'm thinking of playing you up front on your own today. And I looked at Stuart, and Stuart just nodded his head. And I was just gobsmacked. And because we were 4-4-2, you know, that's how we played. And Stuart and I played up front together and we were a good partnership. And I looked at Stuart and he just nodded his head, and I thought, you bloody know about this, don't you? And I said to him afterwards, I said, you know this, don't you? As you know, as we went back in the dressing room, I said, you knew about that, didn't you? No. I said, listen, Stu, my name's Willie Hunt, not silly. I said, you knew? He said, well, yeah. He said, John mentioned I might play in midfield. And I just thought, I was downcast because I just thought, oh, Christ, I'm playing on my own up front at Wembley on a baking hot day. And what I always wanted to do, I mean, and I say this now, what's the other lad called in there with Rob? With you, Rob?
That's Duke.
Oh, mate, Duke.
Duke, right, okay, Duke. I consider myself, if people ask to me, and even now if they ask me, say, what position were you? You're a footballer, weren't you? What position were you? And I'll say, I was a goal scorer. Oh, what do you mean? You're a striker? I said, well, yeah, but I was a goal scorer. What do you mean by that? Well, my job was to score goals. That was my job. And I considered myself a goal scorer. And if I didn't score, I didn't think I'd done my full job that day, even though I might have created a couple of chances that were scored from. I wanted to score. If a shot from one of my mates was going in and the goalkeeper was stranded and it was rolling in, I'd run up and kick it in so that I could score.
Yeah, bang
because
on.
I wanted, because I was so conscious of the fact that people might look at me and think, is he a footballer? Is he a good footballer? Is he skillful? Is he this and that? All I wanted to say was, look, whatever you think about me, look at my numbers. Look how many goals I score. And so it was big for me. So to be playing up front on my own in the cup final, playing a 4-5-1, I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to score. I knew what my job was, grinding out, making sure their back four didn't get out. And I knew that I was going to be that tired because, I mean, it's such a big pitch. It's bigger. It is bigger than most first division fields. You know, it's wider and longer. So there's much more chasing to do on a hot day. And I just knew that my chances of scoring were really limited. And I was so disappointed that was my job. But on the other hand, like 2:45, I thought this through for 10 minutes. And I just thought, wow, I shouldn't feel that way. John Lyle has entrusted me with this change of position to do a job that will help us win the cup. And I should be proud that he's asked me to do that. And so I went out and I did that job. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone looked at that match and found that I'd touched the ball 10 times in the game, because I hardly touched the ball. All I really did was chase around, making sure their centre halves didn't get out, trying to make it as difficult as possible when the ball came up. And so I was so disappointed that my biggest game of my career was going to be a game where I probably wasn't going to score. And obviously I didn't. I mean, my shot was cleared off the line by Willie Young, and then Stuart knocked it in and Trevor headed it in. So I had a part in the goal, but I wanted to come off and beat Alan Taylor from 5 years earlier and be the one that had won the cup for West Ham. The fact that Trevor won it, looking back all these years later, it's right that Trevor won it, wasn't it? He was our best player. Yeah. And it was right that he should have that kind of honour of being the match winner that day. And I was there. I was 5 years at the club, so I was one of those players who would, I was here today, 5 years later, I was gone tomorrow. Trevor Brooking was West Ham. Billy Bonds was West Ham. You know what I'm getting at? It's right. It was right that Trevor has that accolade of being the winner of that game. But on a selfish basis, I was just so disappointed walking out on the field that I knew it probably wasn't going to be my day for scoring goals.
But it was a stroke of tactical genius from John Lyall, wasn't it? Because obviously that little tweak of pulling Stuart Pearson a little bit deeper, which would have caused a little bit of a, the two centre-backs to sort of look at each other and go, well, who's picking him up? It must have caused absolute chaos.
You're spot on. You've almost taken the words out of my mouth. For 15 minutes or so, the two centre-halves, Willie Young and David O'Leary, were shouting at the bench at Terry Neal. I've got cross. Who's taking Pearson? Are we going in with him? Are we sitting back? What are we doing? And by the time they'd worked out, and Don Howe had worked out, Don Howe was the first team coach, but he effectively ran the tactic. And by the time he'd worked out what was going on, we'd scored. I think we scored in the 12th minute. Trevor's goal.
It was early. I know that. I think it was about 12.
I think it was 12 minutes, and we'd scored by that time. And as the game went on, they didn't get back in it, even though they had worked that out. But the big thing for me, looking back at the game, was Stuart was a good footballer. Pancho, he was a good footballer. He could go in there. He could play faced up. Do you understand what I mean by faced up? I was a back to goal player.
Yeah.
So all the time I'm looking backwards at our team.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're looking.
If you turn me around, I'm looking at Phil Parks. I'm looking at our midfield. I'm looking at our back four. Midfield players are kind of half on the turn and can play faced up. Faced up being turning round and attacking their goal. I wasn't that good when I was faced up looking at their goalkeeper.
Yeah. Stuart
Pearson was a good footballer. Even though he was a striker, Stuart could play in there. He could play faced up as the fifth midfield player. I couldn't have done that, but Stuart could, and I understood that Stuart could. And really, when I look back at that game, and a lot of people, saw Phil Parks, Billy Bonds, and Alvin Martin were brilliant that day, and that's true. But for me, Stuart in that role was the key to us winning that game, because he could play in there. Even though he was a striker, a number 9 with his back to goal, he could turn around and face up, and he was part of the goal anyway. I think he slid it out to depth. But Stuart was incredible that day, and he was. The other thing about Stuart was he played in cup finals before. He was experienced. He
in 77, didn't he?
Yeah, he knew how to win the cup. Scored a goal in the 77 cup final. But he knew how to. Stuart was a big game player. He could play in big games. Didn't worry him. Played for England. He wasn't that nervous at playing in the cup final. I was a bag of nerves because I'd never played in the cup final. This was my big day for my family and everything. Stuart had done that before, and he was so experienced and so calm. And for me, he won us that game, even though it was a team effort. Little Ollie, 17, played well and stuff. But Pancho, his role in that game that day, for me, won us the cup.
Yeah, absolutely. We got loads of questions. We got to try and plough through as many of them as we can.
Yeah,
Luke, what you got for us?
Right, I've got to say, this is one of my favourites of all the questions asked. It was only the second one. This was asked well over an hour ago. Bless him, Mark. I think Mark's still in the chat. So, David, growing up, I remember growing up listening to players singing the cup final songs and the squad having a good old sing song. Mark's asked a question. So back in 80, the song was actually recorded by our song was recorded by the Cockney Rejects. Does that mean that the squad's attempt was a shocker? Did you guys actually get into a recording studio? Did you guys have a chance to sing a song, or was it just gone to the Cockney Rejects?
It was never broached. The subject never. No, we never got in a studio and had a song. No, I think the only thing we would be aware of was singing Bubbles, but we weren't recorded doing that or anything like that. No, nothing like that.
There was a few wrong ones, though, weren't there, Rob, over the years? There have been a few shockers.
Yeah, I remember in '87 Coventry did one. Yeah, don't even go there. But they obviously won the FA Cup that year against Spurs, so fair enough. But it's very much of a bygone era, isn't it? You don't hear of teams doing an FA Cup final song anymore, do you, David?
Well, no, I think back in those days, I think one of the reasons they did it was to sell a lot of records and get some cash in for the fun. I mean, that's a serious thing that what we used to have at West Ham, we had a players' fund. So if I went to an event and got £100 for, meeting people and signing a book or anything, that would go in the fund. And Frank Lampard would, he'd put his £50 in if he went somewhere. If we opened a fete or, anything that went in, it went in the players' fund and then got shared out at the end of the season. So if you made a record, when I was at Norwich, playing for Norwich, we played in the League Cup final and we did a song then, and that went into our, the players' fund. And got split at the end of the season, because we always felt that was fair, that not just your best players getting a gig and getting a few quid, even the lads who weren't that popular, not that weren't popular, but you know what I mean, that some lads shine.
The unsung heroes.
Yes, exactly, the unsung heroes, that although they might not get asked to go and do an event and get some money for themselves, they would get a share out of what the big guns had got. So, and that happened at Norwich. And I think we did that at West Ham, but there was back in the, let's say, the early 60s or something, making a song like that would get a lot of money in the coffers for the players, and that would get shared out. But we didn't do one.
Before we move on to the next video question, Duke, just two things I want to sort of say, David, about that team that you were part of, a huge part of, in 1980. Two things that this team is still standing there alone in its achievement. Number one, the last team from outside the top flight to win the FA Cup 42 years ago. It hasn't happened since.
No.
And the last team to win the FA Cup containing entirely British players. Again, that's not happened in the intervening 42 years. And I suspect that neither of those two things are going to change anytime soon.
No, I think you're right. I think we were conscious of the fact that that we were a British team. Here's a good question for you. What else were we all in that team?
Ooh.
I'll leave that with you for a little while, and you can
comment
on it.
Kent is in the chat. He'll probably pipe up.
We were something very specific, that group of 11 players. Just go through that again, because you took what you said. Just go through it again, and I'll answer it.
Just saying that you.
Yeah, the British. Right, I've got it.
All British, and
I'm pretty sure that in '75,
the last all English team
was all English. Yeah, our lads were all English. Well, in the 1980 Cup final, we were all something. Ooh. See if you can get what it is. And it's very unusual.
Hungover?
Pardon?
Hungover?
Maybe. Funnily enough, I did like a drink after the match, but on the Saturday night after we'd won the cup, I didn't have a drink till midnight. I wanted to remember everything. I've seen lads who played in big games and couldn't remember it, because they got that drunk. Some of the lads were drinking Ray Stewart didn't drink. Ray didn't drink at all. Gutsed about a pint of champagne from the FA Cup final, sat in the bath after the match. He was so drunk and not hungover, but sick, being ill. He probably couldn't remember the match itself or the whole thing. So
you're gonna have to put me out of my misery, David. Go on. What was the other thing that this team was all?
Right. Well, you'll get a few lads calling in and saying if his cross is wrong on that, it's not right, that, and they'll point at a few players and I'll correct them. we were all right-footed.
Oh, really?
Every single one of our players was right-footed.
Yeah, because I know Frank at left back, he was right-footed, but he worked on his left and made his left.
Frank's right-footed, but he could play out there. But
yeah,
we were all naturally like a right-footed players.
Wow.
And I don't think that's ever happened since. But.
Well, no, I can't. That's mad. That's mad. I love that.
Kent's going to be at home. He's going to be researching this. He's going to
Yeah, someone will come up and say, "Oh, Frank Lampard left-footed," but Frank wasn't left-footed. He could play with his left foot. He could, but he was right-footed. Every one of us was right-footed.
Wow,
I love that.
So that's 3 things that team of 11 players plus the substitute who often gets overlooked. All Brush, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Brushy, yep.
Brushy was left-footed.
Yeah. He never came on, did he? He was an unused sub, wasn't he?
Didn't come on. Yeah.
Didn't
come on, Brushy. But Brushy was left-footed. Brushy was left-footed. But all the 11 who played were right-footed.
There you go. Duke, we got another video contributor. I think it's Paul is next.
Mr. Stewart, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, hello, David. Hi, it's Paul here. Thanks for the opportunity to ask you a question. And the question I've got very quickly is about you as a player. And when you came to West Ham, signed by John Lyall, it was obvious that you greatly improved the team, added much needed striking power and strength and quality to our attack, which blended the team really well for obviously a cup win and the promotion push, and making an impression in the what was then the First Division. What I'd like to ask is that how do you feel West Ham improved you as a player technically? What did you learn through, say, the coaching techniques, the players around you? How did you feel that your knowledge developed and your ability developed through the sort of technical training at West Ham? That would be something I'd really like to hear about. So thanks a lot.
It's fine. Can you hear me? Because that was breaking up a little bit.
Yep, no, we got you. He just basically asked.
It's really good. It's a really good question, that, because as I said, when I moved to West Ham, I said to John, I'm not sure if I am a West Ham player. But John was a very, very good coach. What he tended to do, I'll tell you, he asked me a question one day. He said, we played in a game, and I think we played Swansea just before we got promoted. I think it was about 5 games in, and Swansea were one of the teams who were up with us in the second division, nearly getting promotion that season. And he said to me, Dave, he said, with about 10 minutes to go, he said, the ball came over to you and you tried to score with your left foot. He said, and you missed it. The goalkeeper saved it. I said, yeah. I said, well, I've always wanted to improve myself, and my left side wasn't the best. Obviously, I'm a right-footed player, and I'm majorly right-footed. I just thought I'd try with my left foot. He said, but I've seen you score. Sorry, I'm getting the answer wrong because I'm thinking it through. He asked me afterward, after a game, why I tried to score with my left foot in a particular game. And I said, well, I wanted to score with my left foot if I could, and I didn't. So he said, well, can you remember the goal you scored against Swansea 2 weeks ago? I said, yeah, I can remember it. He said, your second goal against Swansea, what did you do? I said, I dinked it over the keeper with the outside of my right foot. He said, well, why didn't you do that on Saturday? And I said, well, I just wanted to try it. He said, do what you're good at. He said, if you're confident of putting the ball in the net with the outside of your right foot and you're not confident with your left foot, do it with the outside of your right foot. So it was, it was a cross that came over that I scored, where I could have hit it with my left foot, but I didn't. I just dinked it over the keeper with the outside of my right foot rather than use my left. And he said, do what you're good at, do what you're comfortable at. And that was great for me, to say he wasn't. A lot of coaches will look at someone like me and try to make me better with my left foot, and things you're not so good at. John concentrated on what players were good at, and he said, do what you're good at and get better at it, rather than do what you're poor at and you're only going to be mediocre at it if you improve. He said, just do what you're good at. And that was a huge thing for me. thinking that a manager would say that. You know, most other managers and coaches wanted to prove how good they were at transforming someone. Oh, low power, what's happening? I'm running out of power. I've been on to it. Can I go and get my charger?
Yeah, David, no problem. Do what you got to do. It's not a problem.
Go on. We'll go on tour with you.
We'll carry on. We'll carry on chatting when you're ready. You come back whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, I've not lost power, but
you're getting down to the bare bones, as Harry Redknapp would say.
Exactly right. Oh, where's the charger, Christine? I'm gonna get rid of my wife.
Oh no, don't do that. 40 years.
Yeah.
You'd have to start all over again, David. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, I came in the other week on our anniversary, and I brought her some flowers, and she was lying on the floor when I got in. She was lying on the floor in front of on the sheepskin rug in front of the fire, with no clothes on.
Oh no!
I said, Christine, what are you doing? She said, and she pointed in a downward direction, and she said, "This is for the flowers." And I said, "Have we not got a vase?"
Oh,
it is past 9 o'clock, so we're cool.
Yeah, it's the water.
I'm loving it. A bit of blue. A bit of blue.
Stuff it. Listen, this man's an FA Cup winner in claret and blue. He can do what he likes, as far as I'm concerned. It's not a problem.
I don't know where he's. Are we on the toilet with you, David? Have you gone to the bathroom? What's going on?
No, I think I'm all right. No, I'm back in the kitchen where the charger is.
Plugging it in.
What the actress said to the Archbishop, I think. Yeah, it's charging up. Right, I'm back with you.
Cool.
Right, sorry.
Good stuff.
Back in the
you're
room.
all good.
Yeah.
All good.
Right. Okay. What do we do now? What do you want to do now, Duke? Is it another question in the live chat?
I've got 25 in the live chat. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll play through 2 or 3 of these, and then we'll jump back over. So I've got another question. Let's go with Sharky. So Sharky asked David, what are your best memories from playing at Upton Park?
Well, I mean, I remember driving down Green Street, and from the top of Green Street down to how far is it? 1.5 miles from the top of Green Street down to the Boleyn?
Give or take, yeah.
And I remember driving down there my first home game and seeing all these people in West Ham shirts and claret and blue scarves. And even before I got to the game, I'd got the vibes to play. I didn't have to just get to the stadium and put my shirt on and get out there at 10 to 3. I got it from the top of Green Street with all these people piling down Green Street, wanting to watch West Ham. And I've never really come across that before at any other clubs I've played for, because you kind of got there and you sneaked in at the back entrance to the ground and you were there. But driving down Green Street was so important to me that although I could have come from Barking and come up the Barking Road and come from the other side, driving down Green Street was big for me. And I always wanted to go that way and get to the top of Green Street from the Wanstead end. Is it the Wanstead end?
Yeah.
And drive down Green Street and pick up that feeling for the match. That the fans had that, and it kind of came over to me that. So being at Upton Park was really big for me. But being on there, obviously, I mean, I got a lot of goals at home, and I know the question is what was my best memory, but obviously scoring the hat trick against Real Castilla in the European Cup Winners' Cup. I did get a hat trick in my very first season. It was the first game of the next season. The first time in the second division. First game in the second division, I think we beat Notts County 5-0, and I got a hat trick that day. So as I said, I'm going back to what I said earlier on. I was a goal scorer. I wanted to be the one who scored goals. I didn't want anyone else. I wanted to win the match, but I didn't want all the other lads. I didn't want them to score. I wanted to be the one who scored. Because to me, that kind of proved that I was worth my while being out there. Scoring goals. David, West Ham won 2-0, Cross 2. That was the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Even though West Ham lost at home, West Ham won, Manchester United 3. Goal scorers for West Ham was Cross. You know, that gave me something. It gave me something to lean on. I'd done it. Well, I hadn't done my job in that when we lost, but it gave me some consolation that I wanted. It's difficult to explain, really, but I was always lacking in self-confidence of myself as a player. I'd started at Rochdale as an 18-year-old lad, 17 coming 18. And when you start at Rochdale, you don't really think you're going to get that much further. And that's with respect to Rochdale. I don't mean to disrespect them. But the fact that I'm playing for West Ham and, you know, I'm playing with such iconic players, and that I know I'm not as good as. I mean, the first day I walked in to the dressing room when I signed for West Ham, I sat there in the dressing room, looked around, saw Trevor Brooking, Billy Bonds, all those players who were in there, and I thought, I might be the worst player in here, in this dressing room. And then I had another look round, and I realised all the other lads were probably thinking exactly the same. But that was something that goal scoring proved something to me. You know, look, all right, I know I'm not easy on the eye. I know I'm a bit round-shouldered. I'm not fast, but don't look at me and judge me on that. Have a look at my numbers. See how many goals I scored. So that was my answer, really, to people who might have thought, no, he's not all that good. And all right, you might not think I'm that good. Check my numbers out. See how many goals I've scored in how many games. And that was a big thing for me. So to be a goal scorer, so to get hat tricks and, you know, be the one who's won the match. That's what I was getting back onto about the cup final. You know, that would have been my dream, to have scored the one goal. Or, as I said, like Alan Taylor. And I know Alan. I knew Alan from before he went to West Ham, because he was at Rochdale before he came to West Ham. I wanted to be Alan, you know, that one who'd won that game for the club. And I didn't get the chance. And I was, you know, it was a big disappointment. But yeah, goal scoring was huge for me. It kind of proved or disproved, in some respect, disproved what people thought of me. So I was able to say, yeah, don't judge me on how I look or what you think of me. Check my numbers out. And that was huge for me. So getting goals at Upton Park was big for me. So hat tricks, you know, that Castilla game was big, because we'd had the bad thing about playing. We had to play behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So that was a big one for me.
Story? I heard a story about that, David, and you may know whether this actually happened or whether it's a sort of an urban myth that I heard, that apparently because there was nobody in the bowling ground at the time other than a few policemen and, you know, coaching staff and whatever else, that apparently at half time someone from the director's box came down to ask the players if they'd mind not swearing so much.
I mean, I'm like you. I've heard that story also. I can't confirm yes or no. I can't remember that happening. I would imagine if it had, John Lyle would have told them where to get back to. Because it's a man's game, isn't it? That's what went on. You know, we don't apologise to. I mean, yeah, it's not right. You don't want kids to hear you swearing. I would never want a child who's a West Ham fan to hear me saying something like that. But you did it all the time. I mean, you know, you were out there. It's a hard life being out there against top players. You know, and you did things you weren't proud of. I did a lot of things I wasn't proud of on the field. You know, leaving my foot in late, putting my head in where it probably shouldn't have, taking a goalkeeper out who's probably a decent lad, and I'm just battering into him just because he's their goalkeeper. And it might mean I can score a goal, but it might mean our team can win. There's a lot of things I did that I wasn't proud of. Swearing a lot would be one of them. I mean, my wife, she sometimes swears, but only when it slips out. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at, you lot? You've got bad.
He's got the giggles. He's got the giggles. Take no notice of him.
But
I don't know if you realise this, David. I don't know if you've ever sort of. I'm sure you do. You are the only West Ham player to have a hat trick for the club in a European game.
My wife's just come over and said, "Stop shouting! You're talking too loud."
Sorry, Mrs. Cross. It's our fault.
She said, "If I just open the window and shout, you'll hear me down in London." I can't do. I've got to charge my phone. Right, sorry, I've got a bollocking off my wife now. So going back to that thing about swearing, if it did happen, and I have heard that same story, if it did happen, it might have, but it didn't come across to the players. I'm sure John would have sorted that out with whoever it was came down.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that you are the only player that in West Ham colours has a hat trick in a European game. Are you aware of that fact?
No, no, I'm not.
Yeah, you're the only one to have done it.
Johnny Byrne?
No, you were the first and only West Ham player to score a hat trick for the club in a European game.
No, that is something I didn't know. Right, I've moved out with my wife because she heard me say that about swearing, and only when it slips out. So that's
she's come to tell you off.
Yeah, that's me in the spare room tonight.
Yeah. Well, listen, 40 years, it won't be the first time, is it? Surely not. I mean, I've only been married 20, so.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Once or twice for me.
My wife doesn't like me.
Dear, I'm sure that's not true. Dude, you got another question in the live chat, mate?
Yeah, quick. Let's keep going.
Come on.
I've got a message from Laburo 42. He says, "Do you remember coming out for a match at Upton Park and the whole North Bank was singing 'Psycho's had his haircut' and you pulled your shirt over your head? I'm guessing to cover your haircut, maybe. I don't know."
I don't remember that. I really don't. No, I don't. I mean, to be honest, you get out there and you're kind of in a bubble. It sounds odd, but you don't hear. I mean, there are fans saying all sorts of things. You hear a general loud noise, but you don't really hear individual things that much, especially at Upton Park. You know, when that thing I said about when I was at Cardiff and the bloke said you're a psycho, I was very close to the fans and there weren't many there. So I heard him say that, but you don't generally hear it. And I suppose in some respects you switch off as well because you hear your players, you hear your mates on the field telling you, what to do, or I'm getting low battery again. But no, you don't hear individual things, so that's a bit of a new one on me.
No, fair enough. Duke, we've got a question from Steve in the video section, so if you want to press play on that one.
Coming up.
Hi David, Steve 50 here. You've won the FA Cup and it's now the 80-81 season, I believe, where you've won the second division at Cantor and you were the top goal scorer. I remember the season well because it's one of those where you just turned on the results and West Ham had won. What are your memories from that season and what was the atmosphere like around the club during that time? Thanks very much.
Bounced up and the kind of sound came up a bit. What are you saying? The 80-81 season?
Yeah, the promotion season. What was basically the atmosphere within the camp like throughout the season?
Well, yeah. We'd won the cup, hadn't we, in May 1980? We'd won the cup, and it dawned on us that we'd won the cup. We'd beaten the first division team in the. We were second division, obviously. We'd beaten a team from the first division in the final, in the semi-final, and the quarter-final. And it dawned on us that, hang on a minute, we're better than this. We shouldn't be in the second division. We need to be showing, and we'd been 3 years down, and probably one more year would have meant, I think, a lot of us moving on because the West Ham are a First Division team, and I would think John might have been under pressure to say, look, we need to get players in who get us up. So I think as a conscious thing, it wasn't conscious. It was a subconscious thing, I think, that we shaped ourselves and just said, right, this is the season we need to get up. And for me, I did get, and that's when I got the 34 goals and got the Golden Boot that season. But I was so lucky playing with those players. I was a finisher. I'm fed up with really saying I considered myself a goal scorer. I got on the end of everything else, and everyone else created those chances for me. But imagine playing with Trevor Brooking and Alan Devonshire, those players creating so many chances for someone like me to just get on the end of, almost a tap in, just so long as you're willing to take the hits from the centre half or the goalkeeper. And so to get those goals was brilliant for me. Obviously good for the team because it helped us get promotion, but also we got other players were scoring, not just me. Trying to think, was Paul Goddard in our team in 80-81?
He was, yeah.
Or did
he scored in the League Cup replay, didn't he? The final against Liverpool at Villa Park.
Yeah, he did. But I'm trying to, But that was, But Sarge came to us while we were in the second division, didn't he? Him and Parksy. And Parksy was huge, massive bonus.
World record, wasn't he, for a goalkeeper?
He was, but more than that, he was such a brilliant goalkeeper. I mean, he never did anything spectacular. You just knew, even if their their strikers got behind our back line, Parksy would save it, and very invariably he did. So it was just a great season for me to play with those lads and finally do what John Lyle really had bought 3 years earlier. A genuine goal scorer who was going to win us something. I didn't win the cup for us. I mean, I was in the cup final team, but my job was, as I say, I hardly touched the ball. But to feel that I was a big part of taking us up was huge for me. Like I said earlier, I was a player hugely lacking in self-confidence. And the one thing that could prove that I was worth my while out there was my name on the score sheet. So to get those goals was brilliant because I'd got on the end of, something like from Trevor Brooking or Alan Devonshire or any of the other lads. But mainly for me, my name was there. News of the world, Sunday morning, West Ham 1, Swansea 0, goal scored across. That was big for me. And people might think that's a bit selfish, but that's just how I was. That was my motivation. I wanted to score goals. And because I wanted to score goals, I sometimes was a villain in scoring them. Sometimes I did things I wasn't particularly proud of. But for me, it was important. And whatever else happened, if I scored and we won 1-0, 40,000 fans would walk out of Upton Park happy that Saturday. And that was important for me because I knew the fans took to me for some unknown reason. I didn't think I was a typical West Ham player, but somehow those fans took to me. And I think were disappointed when I left. And that was huge for me. Huge. And people ask me now to say, "Oh, you had a long career. You played for a lot of clubs. What was your favourite time?" So the best 5 years of my career were at Upton Park, without doubt. From being 27 to leaving when I was 31, those 5 seasons were the best.
Well, since you've referenced the end of your West Ham career in that sentence, I think this might be an opportune moment, Duke. Could we play the first question in the videos section from Jazz?
Yeah. I'll get that going now. Here we go.
Hi David, it's Jazz from the West Ham Irons channel. I want to first of all thank you for the service you gave the club. Lots of games, lots of goals, and I believe it's a club where you played the most games for. It's a club you scored the most goals for. So please let me know, back in 82-83, why what seems to me to be quite suddenly and perhaps surprisingly to the fans, you suddenly left the club for Manchester City. Yeah, let me know that, and again, take care and thank you for your service, David.
Sorry. Again, I've lost. I was breaking up a lot on that, but I got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. He was asking basically how it came about that you left. Yeah.
Okay, it is a good question, and there is a logical answer. I I'd left home when I was 20 to leave Rochdale and sign for Norwich City, 200 miles away from home. I'm a single lad. Didn't get married until I was 31. So I was a single lad all through the most of my career, living away from home, living away from my family. I always, once I got to about 25, thinking, if I'm lucky enough, towards the end of my career, I'd love to get back home. So I've been at Coventry, I've been at Norwich City for 2 seasons, Coventry for 3 seasons. So I'm moving a bit nearer back to Manchester, obviously, coming to Midlands, West Brom, but then I'll go down to West Ham. The best 5 years of my career, but I just felt in my last season at Upton Park that in the few games where I wasn't playing all that well, that the fans were just kind of going over the edge with me. Were just kind of thinking, should we get another striker? Is there someone better than him? Cross's not doing as well as he did last season. That kind of thing came to me. And I thought, this club has been the best time of my career. And I don't want to leave the club when I've had a poor season. I don't want 4 great seasons end with 1 bad one. And I thought, this is the time. Every time I left a club, it wasn't my own choice. It was because either someone else wanted me or the club I was at were willing to let me go. In some cases, both of those. Leaving West Ham was the biggest decision I made because I didn't want to leave. But I thought, if I leave if I have 1 more season, it might ruin those 5 seasons I've had. And I didn't want that. I wanted West Ham fans to remember me for what I was. And the other thing was, I met a girl who lived 400 miles from my home house in a village in Hayward in Lancashire, and we were getting married. And Manchester City made a bid for me. So it just all fell into place. And when I left West Ham, I left under the, what was it called, when the clubs couldn't decide what the fee was? The tribunal. I was one of the first players to go under the tribunal.
Really?
And the tribunal was at Manchester United's ground at Old Trafford. And I went there. West Ham explained what they'd offered me. Manchester City explained what they'd offered me. I was asked why I wanted to leave, and I said I didn't particularly want to leave, but I thought it was the right time for me to leave, so that I'd had 5 great years and people would remember those 5, not the 1 bad season I was going to have where they were glad to get rid of me. The tribunal accepted that. But when I walked out of that tribunal with John Lyle and I can't think who was with him.
Eddie Bailey?
It wouldn't have been Eddie Bailey. It might have been the secretary, Eddie Chapman. Eddie Chapman. And John Bond and Peter Swales were there from Manchester City. And as we split up, John Lyle and Eddie walked to their car. I walked with John Bond and Peter Swales to their car. And as I was walking, I got about 10 yards along and thought, I wish I was walking the other way with those other 2.
Wow.
And I'm not making that up. I just genuinely thought what West Ham had done in their preparation for the tribunal was so detailed and so brilliant, and City's was just so haphazard. And I just thought, what am I doing? I'm going with these guys, and I should be going back with those guys back down to London in their car. And it was a real difficult couple of days for me thinking that through. So, but that was the reason. I did want always to, I'd never left a club under my own terms. This was the first time I ever was leaving a club under my own terms. And although it hurt in a lot of respects, I was quite proud of the fact that I was able to walk away from the best club I'd ever played for, because it was my decision. And I genuinely did not want to have, I did feel towards the last 6 months of my time at West Ham, I was just slipping down a little bit where the fans were thinking, oh, bloody hell, do we need someone else? And I didn't want one more season to happen where that did happen. And I was out on my ear under a cloud, if you like. And I did feel as though I went out on my own terms. And I was happy to do that, even though it was a real sad thing to leave the best club I'd ever played for.
Yeah, because just looking here, you was actually your last season at West Ham. You was the top goal scorer with 16 goals in the league, weren't you? Or, well, 16 goals it says here. I don't know if they were league goals or
it would be 16 league goals, because I think I got 19 in all. So I think I must have got a couple in League Cups or FA Cup. I was still leading goal scorer, but I just got that feeling the fans were just going over the edge with me, if you know what I mean. I just felt that buzz that I had when I walked out to Upton Park wasn't quite there in that last season. And I just did not want one more season where I might get left out of the team and be in the reserves. And I'd gone over I'd kind of was sliding back down the ladder I'd climbed up in my 5 years at Upton Park. And the chance to go back to Manchester and be back home. As I say, I was single. I didn't get married till I arrived at Manchester City. I got married that summer, 1982, and that's why this was our 40th anniversary this year, because August 21st, 1982 was when I got married. So 40 years on. So I left West Ham and got married to a girl from my hometown. And I was happy to go back home, but there were times when I was playing for City that season and thinking, I've made a mistake here. My brothers fell out with me. 3 brothers. I've got 3 elder brothers. They fell out. You should never have left West Ham, David. You made a big mistake.
Wow.
And I understood what they were coming, where they were getting at, but I just felt I'd done the right thing at that time. I'd gone back home. I found a woman who I wanted to get married to. And so it was a huge decision. It's daft to say I didn't want to leave, because I left, and it was obviously my decision. But it was a very, very difficult. It was the hardest decision I ever made. And I felt I'd let John Lyle down. I really did. When he walked into that car park with Eddie Chapman and got in his car, I thought I've let him down. I've really let him down. He's done everything for me. He's improved me as a player. He's improved my attitude. He's improved my goal record. Instead of the previous record was a goal in every 3 games. Now I've got a goal. I've played 225 games. I've got 99 goals and nearly a goal in every 2. And he's improved me that much. And I'm abandoning him, really. I'm deserting him, and I felt shocking about that, because whatever people might think about football, we do have a conscience.
Did that affect your relationship afterwards, or did you ever sort of like recover any sort of friendship, if you will, beyond that point?
What, with John, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, John was great. John understood. Dave, you're a footballer. You're 30, coming up 31.
Yeah.
You've got a great move. You're going to get a big signing on fee. They give you more money than we offered you. Good luck to you. Well done, brilliant. Thanks for 5 great years for us. John's such a nice man, just such a gentleman. I mean, I met him at events later and spoke to him about the FA Cup. John, why did you make me play up front on my own? Why didn't you let me, get 2 goals and, play 4-4-2 and ask him those questions? And no, I've got on really well with John, and still go down and meet his family, meet Yvonne and Murray, his son. No. Football, it's a job. It's a lot. John understood. He understood exactly why I'd gone, and I explained to him. I said, "Look, I don't want one more year where I'm crap, where you have to leave me out because I'm not doing well." And he understood that. He said, "I don't think you would have that season, Dave, but I understand that's how you might feel." No, John was completely understanding it. It's football, it's life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We got another question in the live chat, Duke.
This is from someone you've spoken to before. So it's a question from Russ Budden. A question from Raspberry Russ. Did you have any pre-match superstitions? one boot on before the other one, like left foot, right foot, or your top on last, or anything like that?
I didn't. There was one thing that did tend to happen, that I always went out second after Billy. I think Parksy came behind me, but it just the way it happened, I was second out through the tunnel. The one superstition I had, which is the strangest thing really, was I wouldn't go, if I'd got a hat trick and I'd gone down Green Street from the Ilford end, I wouldn't go down the same route from the house in Shenfield to the ground that same way the next game. I'd go another way. I'd go down the Barking Road, or I'd come through Snaresbrook and drop down. I would come a different way. It felt that if I'd had a good day, I shouldn't milk it. It sounds stupid, I know. But I just thought that in some respects, my superstition was not to have a superstition. Does that make sense?
It'll do.
Because I think, right, I've come through Barking, and then mostly I came down Green Street, like I explained before. But I'd come down through Barking, I'd score the winning goal in the quarter-final of the League Cup against Tottenham. I can't come that way again because I don't want to bock it. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that because I might be pushing it too far. I'll come another way, and then I can go that way again and in 2 games' time. And it's a daft superstition, I know. I think the one superstition people do remember me about was the lucky pig.
Well, you say that. Actually, there is it's not necessarily a question, but it was something I starred, was Happy. She's put, I love the story about the lucky pig that Psycho kept.
Yeah.
So regale us with that story, my man.
Well, yeah, Rob Jenkins was our physio, and Rob and I always used to sit together and on the coach wherever we're going. And I just noticed that if we were going through towards Cardiff or up to Manchester or up the A1 towards Newcastle or Sunderland, if we passed a field and I saw a pig or a group of pigs, I scored. And I mentioned this to Rob. I said, Rob, because Rob would say, and in fact, if you go on the train from Euston to Manchester, about halfway, about an hour and a half onto the journey, no, it's only 2.25 hour journey, maybe an hour in, near a place called Atherstone, between Coventry and that kind of Midlandy area, the train goes right past a pub called the Lucky Pig. And if you ever go up there, keep an eye out, and it's on your right hand side as you're going up towards Manchester.
Yeah.
And I said to Rob, I said, every time I notice that Lucky Pig pub, I score. I said, and every time we see pigs in a field, I score. And then Rob latched onto that, and he looked out the field, out of the coach, and tried to find pigs in a field to tell me so that I'd score. And that kind of went on, and that was my good season. It was a real good season, that FA Cup year for me. I was scoring goals. And then when it got to the cup final, Rob bought me a little pig, a little pink plastic pig. And I said, why have you got me that? He said, because we're playing the cup final and you're seeing pigs means you'll score. And it's obviously a good luck charm for you. So you can have that. Sorry, I'm going too far. It was during that season he got me the pig. And I took the pig with me and had it in my pocket, and then got changed, and it was in my pocket in the dressing room, and I went out and played and invariably scored. But when we got to the cup final, I couldn't leave it in my jacket in the dressing room. I thought, if I'm going to get good luck, I'm going to have to take it out with me. So I took it out with me and held it in my left hand throughout the cup final. And if you look at the cup final, if you look at me, if you look at my left hand, you'll see my fist is closed tight all the time, because I've got the little lucky pig. It's only small, it's really small, but that was my lucky pig.
Well, hang on a minute. So, because obviously I did the thumbnail for this. So, is that so? Where are you've got the medal in your right hand? Is that right? And have I put the Falls from Iron logo over where you were holding the pig?
I've not got my glasses on, but there's a blue thing in my left hand.
Yeah.
That behind that blue thing in that left hand is the lucky pig. Yeah.
That's the pig. Oh, I've obscured the pig. I had no idea.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to have to do, Rob. Is I'm going to have to break this out when we're done here, and I'm going to watch the cup final. I've got a DVD. It's signed by. I've got this one signed by Parksy. I'm going to have to watch this now. I'm going to have to go back and watch it and see if I can. See if I can see those. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. That's the first time I've heard that story. So I love that. I love that a lot.
We've got, if I may, Duke, just sort of like be very, very cheeky and bring up, because David, you mentioned about scoring a goal in a League Cup quarter-final in, was it 80-81 against a certain team along the North Circular from us?
Yeah.
Tottenham Hotspur. Well, there was another game that you're probably more better known, and Mark asked the question, how are we 90 minutes in and David hasn't mentioned White Hart Lane, where you scored 4 goals in a 4-0 victory?
Yeah, I mean, I think that game is one game West Ham fans who were there or who were West Ham fans at that time will remember that, because that was only our second game back in the top division. We played Brighton at home on the Saturday and drew. I think we drew 2-2.
Yep.
And we knew we were going to Sunderland on the next Saturday. So we only got, we getting a home game, first game of the season. And Brighton, with respect to Brighton, we thought, well, that could be 3 points. Then we've got Spurs away. Then we've got Sunderland away. So if we don't win against Brighton in the home game, we could come away with no points after 3 games, be rock bottom, because we've got Tottenham away and Sunderland away. So we drew at home with Brighton on the Saturday, and then going on the Tuesday night to White Hart Lane, it was it's a big game for us. Ray Clements' debut, his home debut, and to score those. Look, again, I was the finishing product. I was the one who put the ball in the net. But those goals were created by someone else. 4 other players created those goals. I was just the end product.
Yeah.
So it's not just me getting 4 goals and winning the cup, the match on my own. It was a team thing. But I was the pinpoint. I was the one at the top end of the, of that arrow, if you like, to put the ball in the net. So to get 4 at White Hart Lane against Tottenham, to prove to our fans that we were back, and not only just because we'd drawn at home on the Saturday, we've now 2 games in and we've got 4 points. We actually went to Sunderland and won that. So we're now 7 points from 3 games. So the 2 points we lost again in the first game didn't seem that important, because I think we're probably 3rd in the league, maybe even top after 3 games, because we'd won. We got 7 points, 2 wins and 1 for the home draw. So the big thing for us really from that game was that it gave us so much confidence to think, well, we're going to Sunderland on Saturday. If we beat Tottenham 4-0 at White Hart Lane, we can get something at Roker Park. So although don't get me wrong, although scoring goals was very important to me personally to prove that I was good enough to be out there, I was also conscious of the fact that the club and the team and the fans got so much enjoyment from the fact that we'd beaten our biggest rivals, and not only beaten them, we'd hammered them, hadn't we?
Yeah, and the third goal was superb goal, total football. I mean, it was a throw in from Frank Lampard on the left hand side. I'm actually just watching it here. I'll just sort of go through it.
It's one touch all the way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it's round the corner from, is it Goddard? Ball's crossed in, and you meet it on the volley, and Clements has got no chance. And I thought the commentator was a little bit uncharitable, because he said you hit it off the shin.
Yeah, he did say that, and I mean, I understand why he said that, because when you do watch it, it looks as though it has. But what in real time, as it came over, I mean, I hit it sweet as a nut. I actually hit it from the shoelaces, from where if you like, your shoelaces meet the bottom part of your leg. Where right, not at the bottom, but right on the on the bootlaces, if you like. I hit it so well, and it flew in. And then when I got home, and he said it's come off my shin. I thought, you prick. The best goal I've ever scored in my career, in one of the most important games of my career, for my best team in my career against our biggest rivals, and he's described it as coming off my shin. And I thought, wow. And I can't phone the bloke up and say you got that wrong. He probably still thinks he's right now, that reporter, or that commentator. But no, I'd hit it so well. And I understand, because when you look at it, it does look a bit odd. But I just hit it so well, and the flex of my boot as it hit it, it does look a bit odd, and I can see why he thought it did. But believe me, it did. If it had hit my shin, it would have gone in the crowd. You can't control it like that. I hit it so well, and to hear that almost like spoils me looking at that again, because I get that commentary as well. I know what you mean. Because he says not only was it a terrific goal, it was very odd or something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Usual. But I mean, oddly enough, I think I put it on Twitter last week, because that goal has come up again, because it was
I saw it.
Like this week, 40 years ago, wasn't it, or whatever. And I actually said the first goal I thought was my best. In some ways, it is the best, because the first goal in a game is very important for the team.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're on the up, you got ahead. But I've hit that so well. I hit it. I don't think I'd ever hit a ball as hard as that I hit that. I mean, Ray Clemens tried to get something on it and didn't. It nearly took him in the back of the net with it, and I'd hit it so hard. It was Jimmy Neighbour crossed it from the right hand side, and Jimmy was a former Tottenham player, wasn't he? And it just dropped to me nicely, and I just volleyed it. And as I said, I don't think I've ever hit a ball so hard that I scored with. I mean, I would have hit a ball as hard, but it wouldn't gone in the goal. But I always preferred that first goal to that third one in a strange kind of a way.
Interesting. Duke, we got a question. I hope he's still in the chat, from Mr. Budgie.
Yes, let me go and grab it. There it is. Here we go.
Hi there, Budgie from Green Street Elites, and I've got a question for David Cross. During your 5 years at West Ham, who's your favourite strike partner, or who is the player you like to play with the most that maybe assisted you the most? Thanks.
I mean, first of all, my first strike partner was Brian Robson, who was one of my heroes, because I was a Newcastle United supporter as a kid.
Okay.
So playing with Brian was like, wow. As a 15-year-old kid sneaking off school on Friday afternoon, hitchhiking up to Newcastle from Manchester and watching Brian Robson play for Newcastle. And then 10 years later, finding I'm in the same team as him. He's one of my heroes. That was massive. And he was a good player. But I only had that half season with him, from December till the end of the season, when we went down and Brian left, went back to Sunderland. So I didn't have that long with him. And also we played in a 3, myself, Pop and Derek Hales. So that was a bit odd as well. Hales, he was a good finisher. Don't get me wrong, he was an odd lad. He was a head case, Derek, but a fantastic finisher.
It was Charlton, wasn't he? He came from? Was it Charlton?
He didn't come from Charlton. He'd left Charlton, and he'd gone up what he considered to be up north, hadn't he? Where did he go to? Did he go to Nottingham Forest? And then come to us. He certainly went up. He considered it to be up north, because he said, I can't play up north. But I said, Derek, where you went isn't up.
He actually played for the team that's in the town that I reside in currently, Dartford, at the beginning of his career. He's Dartford, Luton Town, Charlton Athletic, Derby County, West Ham United.
It was Derby
Charlton, and finished up at Gillingham.
Yeah, it was Derby County, not Nottingham Forest. It was Derby County, and he didn't enjoy it there at all. And he came to West Ham. But Derek was an odd lad, a real strange lad. He's a one-off, a real one-off, but a terrific player. What a finisher! So cool in front of goal, just calm and collected. So, he would tuck one like almost half, not even half hit it, but into the bottom corner, and where I had to put power on it, to score. I always felt I needed power. Derek would just tap it in from 15 yards. He'd just roll it in, because he was so cool and such a good finisher. So that's Brian Robson, that's Derek Hales, and then Stuart Pearson. And Stuart is still my pal now. He lives in Warrington, 30 miles away from here. I'm going down to a West Ham event next February with Stuart, me and him, at one of Len Herbert's dues.
Yep.
Me and Stuart as the strike force, we'll be there doing that. And he's still my pal now. I'm still going out occasionally and have a beer with him. Okay. And again, because he was iconic Manchester United, I'm playing with Stuart Pearson, who's scored all those goals for England and Manchester United, and then Sarge, Paul Goddard. And Paul was different from me because I'd always felt I was like the second of the partnerships. Brian Robson was a better player than me. I was supporting him, if you like, flicking them on for him. Pancho, similar. He was a much, much better footballer than me. But me being able to chest one down and him score was great for me. I'm helping Stuart Pearson to score. But when Sarge came, I felt it was though it's me in charge of that partnership, because Paul was a fantastic footballer, excellent finisher, but he wasn't physically that strong. So what I realised quite quickly was that while Paul had such silky skills, but he wasn't that strong, I was going to have to do all the graft, all the hard work. And I remember, playing with him and just saying, look, I'll do the work. I'll do the hard work. You get on the end of it and let's see how we go. So, don't you be running about. Because at times, Paul, an hour after the game, he would be looking fairly knackered that you might think, he's going to have to go off. So I just wanted to do all that hard running for him. And I think we made maybe not an agreement in speaking about it, but it was like a tacit agreement, unspoken, that I'd do the graft, he'd do the good football, and that worked so well. That season I think we broke the record for the partnership as goals. My 34, I think he had about 22, so we'd got nearly 60 goals between the two of us. So it's difficult to pin one man down as my best partner, but for me, because he was my schoolboy hero, it would probably, and I hope Pancho's not listening to this, but it'd be Brian Robson.
He'll forgive you.
He will. He's a good lad.
When you go to that Len Herbert event, just buy him a pint. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll do that. But Brian Robson, Brian was such what a player he was.
Yeah, my dad always he spoke about Pop Robson in very glowing terms. Obviously, yeah. I've only seen him in sort of footage latterly, obviously slightly before my time. Yes, he was, Duke. Yes, he was. Don't you start. But yeah, he was a goal scorer, just a born goal scorer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was a fantastic player, really was.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, years later, when he was a youth team coach at Manchester United, he coached my son. As my son got into Manchester United's, they didn't call it the Academy Lane, School of Excellence. That's right.
Yeah.
Those years back, 20 years ago, it was the School of Excellence. And Bobby, my son Bobby, who was named after an iconic West Ham player, Bobby went to the School of Excellence, and his coach was Pop Robson, which was really nice.
Nice little bit of symmetry there. That. All comes full circle.
Yeah.
Duke, we got another question in the live chat. I'm sure we can pick out another couple.
I'm sure there's several. I've actually got a question from my dear old mum. My dad isn't the greatest with technology, so she's had to. They're not together anymore, but she's had to go around his house and set him up on his tablet so he could watch. Watch me and Rob obviously interview yourself. She's actually asked, David, how did you feel? It's been a while now since obviously the ground and the bowling was demolished, and to be fair, it's still I've not been back since we left. How did you feel when you saw that? Or did you see any of the pictures of the ground coming down? Was you how did it make you feel?
I've said this about 5 times now, but what a great question that is. I came to a West Ham event. Can't think now. When did we leave? When did we get to the
2016?
Yeah, right. Okay. So in 2017, I got invited down to a pre-event at a club just around the corner from Upton Park, like a Labour club or something, a working men's club.
Yep.
Just around the corner, just past where the Fine Mass shop, the Jelly shop.
East Ham Working Men's Club.
Yes, East Ham Working Men's Club. Yeah. So I was invited to there. So I've got off the underground at Upton Park.
Yep.
Walked down Green Street, and I couldn't look at. It sounds ridiculous for a grown man. I couldn't look at Upton Park. I walked past it. I had to have my head down and just look at the pavement until I got to the Berlin pub, and then I would turn down the Barking Road, and I kind of got my head back up. I couldn't look at the club. I couldn't look at the ground. And that's absolutely ludicrous. And West Ham fans might think what a prick he is, but
I guarantee you they all feel the same, my friend. I guarantee.
I could not look at it in the state it was then. It just, to say I felt sick wasn't right. Tears in my eyes, possibly thinking what a time I'd had there, and it wasn't there anymore. Really odd thing for a grown man I know who looked as tough as old boots on the football field, but I just felt so emotional. It was strange, and I couldn't look at it. I could not look at it. I couldn't look to my left and look at the ground, and it was just such a fantastic part of my career, and it wasn't there anymore. And it wasn't great. I didn't like it at all.
Well, I remember going to the last game. I had and I still do have a season ticket. But at the time I only had 2 season tickets, one for me and one for a child season ticket. And I've got 3 kids, and we took them in a rotation basis. And my 2 sons had been to the final home game of the previous 2 seasons. So it was my daughter's turn, and it just so happened, last game at the Bowling, Manchester United under the lights.
Yeah.
And I remember as I was coming out with my daughter, we've won the game 3-2. There was all the sort of like the pyrotechnics and the great players on the pitch and all the rest of it. And I remember coming out of there with my daughter, and I made myself a promise that I wasn't going to go back. And I almost kept that promise, but I had to break that promise completely out of circumstance, because in my job, I'm a domestic appliance engineer, and I got put. I normally work southeast London, but on this occasion, out of necessity, I had to go into East London, and I had a job on Priory Road, so I had no choice. No. I had to go past it, and I'm looking at all these flats that are now there. This was possibly about 2 years or so ago, and I went past these flats. Now, if these flats had been anywhere but where they were, I'd have said, do you know what? They look like really nice flats, a nice place to live for some families and this, that, and the other. But simply because of where it was, I'm just looking and going, no, it's just not right.
I do understand that. I actually got invited down to the last game.
Did you?
Yeah, I got invited, but I turned it down. I didn't. I just didn't want to go.
Painful.
Yeah. Well, it would have been. I made an excuse because I didn't want to sound like a fool. I made an excuse to not go, but
I bet you weren't the only one.
Yeah, I turned it down. I couldn't. I couldn't. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Even talking about it now, it sounds ridiculous.
No, I don't think it does.
But it was just such a massive part of my career, that 5 years, that 5 seasons at Upton Park. And obviously, of my 225 games I played, 160 would have been on that ground. No, I just couldn't. My wife said, you should go. It's a big thing for West Ham, and the fans used to really like you. I said, Christine, I can't go. It would be too much for me after what that ground meant to me.
Yeah, understood. We've got one.
Then she called me a prick again. Then
she loves you, David. Like I say, 40 years.
Sounds like a pet nickname.
Do you know what she does for a living?
She's a lawyer, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, she's a divorce lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were you all screwed?
To be fair, she has said that if we do ever split up, we'll share the house 50-50. She said she's going to have the inside, I can have the outside.
Well, you can't say she's not fair, David. You can't say that she's a very fair woman and you're lucky to have her.
Yeah, you're right. You're spot on.
Luke, we've got one final video question.
From Jazz,
from a familiar face.
Let's where have we gone? There we are, and let's do that.
It's Jazz again with his second question for David. You went from Manchester City to Vancouver Whitecaps in 82-83. Let me know what Vancouver's like to live in back in those early 80s, David. I mean, my family is Sikhs. There's so many in Canada. You probably saw a few in Vancouver walking around with their colourful turbans. So yeah, interesting for me would be to find out what was Vancouver like back in early 80s. I know it's always in the top 10 cities to live in, but yeah, want to know what your experiences were living there, which not many players did back then. So thanks again, David.
Again, really badly breaking up. I did get it. What was it like living in Vancouver?
Yeah.
And playing in Vancouver. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a bit easy. I mean, I played with some top players, Peter Beardsley and me up front, Dave Watson, and Manchester City in England, centre half, Franz Tyson from Ipswich. So we had a real good team. Johnny Giles was, Peter Lorimer in that team. So it was a real good team to play. And Vancouver itself is a fantastic city. Really nice people. It was one of the great cities in the world where you can sunbathe in the morning and ski in the afternoon. Seriously, you could be on the beach. On the beach, 80 degrees in the morning, and it would still be 80 degrees in the afternoon. But you would just take a tram up to the mountain and ski in the afternoon. I mean, I never did ski, but that was what you could do. You just went from extreme of one to extreme of the other, and it was just a fantastic city. But I have got a great story if you want to listen to it.
Absolutely,
keep them coming.
We played Chicago Sting in Chicago, and the next morning, a very early flight. I can't think what they call it. That late flight. They have a name for it. The Americans, don't they?
Sleeper?
No, something eye flight. The red eye.
Red eye.
Yeah. Red eye. So it's like 6 in the morning. We're up to have breakfast in the hotel. Straight to the airport. 7:15 takeoff. So we were ushered onto the flight because we, with the Whitecaps, the Vancouver Whitecaps, with our tracksuits on. Like, you guys get on first, and let the other passengers come on. So, with like VIPs getting on the plane first. And as I got on the plane, there's some people already on it. And I thought, I can't work this out. Like, we are the first ones on it, yet there's people already on it. Anyway, I sat down to this lad, the youngest lad, and he looked at my tracksuit top with the Whitecaps, and I said, "Oh, you're one of the Whitecaps?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What have you been?" I said, "We played Chicago Sting last night." "Oh, right. How do you get on?" "Yeah, we won 2-1. A good result for us, really." "Oh, yeah." I said, "I'd go and watch the Whitecaps, and because there was no travelling. You didn't go to an away game in America because it was too far. You're travelling 3,000 miles."
Yeah.
So everyone watched the home games. No one went to the away game. So he said, "Yeah, I watched the home games." "Yeah, great. I said, "What have you been doing?" "Oh," he said, "I've just been in New York." He said, "I'm working there." "Okay." I said, "What particular were you doing?" And he said, he said, "I'm a musician and I've been recording my second album." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I've actually got I noticed you've got a Walkman there." He said, "Would you like? I've got a demo tape here." He said, "This is my second album. Would you like to listen to it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, of course, yeah." So anyway, 45 minutes later, I've listened to this album, and it was right my kind of genre of music, a bit like Bruce Springsteen-ish, if you're of that era.
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Yeah, it's really good." I said, "Actually, it is my kind of stuff, that." Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Bruce Springsteen. I said, "Oh," he said, I'm flattered that you think I'm within that group of people." I said, "Yeah, it's really good." He said, He said, "I've got to release one of the songs off that album for my next single." He said, "Which one would?" And I said, "That's a difficult question." I said, "Because sometimes the first one you hear that you really like, after you've listened to an album 10 more times, that's actually the least favourite. You know, I said, but the one that hit me most commercially that I think would sell was that one about 1969. And it was Bryan Adams.
Yeah. As you were saying it, I'm thinking, I wonder if this was who I think it is.
Yeah.
And
brilliant.
And then he explained what he'd been doing, and he was recording that album. I said, funny enough, I got your first album, Cuts Like a Knife. I've got that in my bag here. He said, yeah, I bet you have. Anyway, I did. I had it. He said, oh, well. And he signed that for me. He signed it. Signed it to my son, actually, to Bobby. I've still got that now. But yeah, it was Bryan Adams sitting next to me on the plane. I didn't know who he was. But I found out afterwards, the lads, as we got off the plane, the lads said to me, do you know who that was? I said, not really. I said he was a musician of some sort. And he said, they said, yeah, it's Bryan Adams. He's a real good musician.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the summer of 69. And years later, now we're past the watershed, I can say that I heard Zoe Ball interview Bryan Adams about 10 years ago on the morning show.
Yep.
She mentioned, and she said, Brian, I've got to ask you this. The summer of 69, I've listened to the lyrics. Would you be, you guys down in London there, would you be aware of the lyrics of summer of 69? The band split up, Jodie got married.
Yep.
Those lyrics. And she said, I've worked out, I've looked at when you were born, in 1969, you'd been 8. You couldn't have been in a pop group in 1969.
Yeah.
And this is on the radio, and he said, well, actually, he said, it's not about 1969.
Oh, no.
That there's no 19 ever in it. It's the summer of 69. So she said, right, so you know, where are we going with this? And he said, well, I don't want to get too deep in a morning show, but it was the time when me and my mates first discovered there was other signs, there was other things in sex rather than just the whole thing.
Yeah.
So 69, and she said,
straight, I
think we better leave it there, Brian. Thank you. But yeah, that's what he said. That song was.
We appear to be losing you. You're going through a tunnel.
So it wasn't about 1969. It was about him and his mates discovering sex, basically, and the ways that you could have sex other than the actual
act.
Yeah. So the 69. That's what it's about. So interesting.
Who knew?
And you told him to release that one first.
I did. I did. Oh dear.
There it is.
Are you okay for a little bit longer, David, or do you need to?
I'm just licking my lips at the moment.
Oh yeah. Oh. Okay, Duke. What else we got in the live chat, mate?
I'm glad you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one bypassed him. Don't worry about it.
No, it didn't. I'm just remaining professional.
You're being you.
Yeah.
Boring. I've got 2 questions. They pretty much cover the same thing. One is from MK12 here about the most difficult opponent you played against, and Peter actually asked a similar question. He said, "Who was the hardest player or hardest footballer you ever played against? So the most difficult and hardest player you come up against."
Physically, the hardest player I ever played against, and bear in mind I was 20 at the time, just moved to Norwich, was Mike England from Spurs. Physically, hitting him was like walking into a wall. You know, big, strong man. Jim Holton was hard to play against because Jim would just kick you for death. You know, he would just kick you. Jim, when there was a throw-in near our corner flag, and Jim and I were on the halfway line having a chat at Old Trafford, as we won the ball and it was going to get kicked up to me, he just decked me. He punched me, knocked me down to the ground, and I just got up. I said, "Jim, what do you do that for?" And he said, "I know you. You'll be on your way. You'll be trying to get the ball, sneak past me." He said, "You're quicker than me, so I've got to sort you out before the ball comes up." So I said, "Oh, right, okay." I said, "Anyway, are we going out tonight? Are we having a beer after the match?" That's how it was in those days. You know, Jim had punched me, but I would probably have punched him. But that was what it was. But I'm going back to the best player I ever played against, you know, in terms of football. And that I mean, Bobby Moore wouldn't be far off, but Bobby wasn't physically strong. You know, he wasn't a kicker, was he? Wasn't someone going to floor you. But in a similar way to Bobby Moore, I also played against New York Cosmos for the Whitecaps and played against Franz Beckenbauer.
Yeah.
So although he wasn't at his best when I played against him, he would probably be the best centre half I ever did play against. Can you understand what I'm getting at there?
Yeah.
You know, when he probably was 38. I was 30. He might have been 30, might have been 40. And he wasn't at his best. But when I look back and be able to say I played physically one-on-one against Franz Beckenbauer, you know, that's quite a proud thing.
Well, he actually, looking here, he actually made, in 1983, he actually made the NASL All-Stars team.
Yeah,
and there was actually 3 teams. They've got a first team, a second team, and an honourable mentions team. And there's a certain centre forward by the name of Cross that I see amongst the honourable mentions.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's an interesting one.
Along with a Peter Beardsley.
Yeah, me and Pugsley. Yeah,
Pugsley. Go on, you're going to have to explain. I think I know the reason, but go on. Why Pugsley?
Was it the Adams family? Pugsley. It was something like that.
I thought it might have been.
Pugsley was the kid in the Adams family, and Peter looked a bit like him. That's all.
Oh my God! Well, did he like the nickname?
No.
And I bet that meant you
stuck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The more you dislike the nickname, the more you get it, don't you? You have to pretend to really like it. If you really like it, then no one calls it you for a while.
No one calls you it. Yeah.
So no, Pugsley. Yeah, it's a good lad though, Pete. Really good lad. Good footballer. Terrific lad. Really nice. Nice lad.
What else we got in the live chat, Duke?
I've got a couple of random ones. I've got one from Kent, and I'm going to obviously Kent's a big friend of the channel. He's asked you, obviously being a number 9 and a former Manchester City player, what are your thoughts on Erling Haaland and how many goals do you reckon he could score this season?
Do you know something? This is one of those questions I was hoping I wouldn't get, purely because I'm not dodging the issue, but I've never seen him play. Over the last 3 weekends, I've been at cricket with my daughter or my son, watching Kate playing the 100 for the originals, and I haven't watched Match of the Day. I haven't watched much live football. I saw the Liverpool United game live. I haven't seen a West Ham game, and I haven't seen a Manchester City game, so I can't comment. It sounds like I'm dodging the issue, but he's obviously very good. The City fans who I know who've seen him play, they're raving about him. Oh, you know, he's going to be the best ever, and but I haven't seen him play, so I can't comment. So, I mean, I know the reputation, but until I've actually seen him, I wouldn't want to comment. You know, I might say, oh, you know, he's 6'3" and a terrific player. In actual fact, he might be 5'9". I don't know. I mean, I assume he's a big lad, but do you know what I mean? I haven't seen him play, and it's not fair to comment, really. So I'm not dodging the issue, but I just haven't seen him play.
Well, I made a bit of a faux pas at the start of the season, which I'm continuing to take a hell of a lot of stick for. I actually said I thought he'd struggle when he first came over. Obviously, the standard of defenders outside of, you know, the top 2 in Germany, Borussia Dortmund and obviously Munich, there isn't many like over here. We have some fantastic defenders outside of the top 6. I actually said I think he might struggle for the first 6 months of the season. It turns out he's now got 9 goals in 5 games, and I look like a bit of a dick. So,
to be honest, is it Rob said that?
No, Duke.
Sorry, Duke. I didn't even know he got 9 goals. I mean, until cricket's finished, I really don't switch on to football. And it sounds daft, but my family's a cricket family.
No, that's it. Yeah.
My son, my daughter, my other daughter Jennifer is the Manchester Originals physiotherapist, you know, and has been with England netball as their physiotherapist. And so until the cricket season's finished, I tend not to really switch on to football. Once it does, and the cricket's finished, which will be in 2 weeks' time, I'm right onto the football. I love watching it. I'll be watching every live game I can. But I haven't seen any live games yet. I haven't seen a West Ham live game, and I haven't seen Haaland play. So, you know, it's difficult. You know, I can't comment on someone I haven't seen. It wouldn't be right.
Were you quite a tasty cricketer in your youth, David?
Yeah, I was all right. I think, I think when I first played for our club team, I was the youngest player ever to play in our club side, which was league cricket in Lancashire. I was 15, I think, and then I was playing against Roy Gilchrist, Garfield Sobers, back in the mid '60s, because they were in our league as professionals. So yeah, learnt the hard way as a cricketer. But once I'd signed for Rochdale as a footballer, they insisted I stop playing cricket in case I got injured.
Yeah,
I love playing cricket. I was a wicket-keeper batsman, if you like. Didn't have many shots, but I was hard to get out. My son's completely the opposite. He just plays shots all day long and gets lots and lots of runs. But yeah, I love playing cricket. I love cricket actually better than football when I was a kid. Mainly, I think, because in football you had to win. In cricket, you could lose but still get 60 runs yourself and take 5 catches and have a good day. You know what I mean? You're influenced in football by how your team did, whereas at cricket you can have an individual good day even though the team doesn't. So I kind of like that about cricket.
Well, since Lee's he's just put a little comment in the chat. He's just given us a little prod. Do you want to get his question up, Duke?
Well, I think Lee doesn't want his question up, Rob, to be honest with
you.
Okay. Because his question actually is, and
he's pressed the wrong button. I don't believe him. How long's he been doing this, for Christ's sakes? All right. Okay. I'll tell you. Oh, no, he's back.
Laptop.
What did you press this time?
I just hate my laptop. Let's not worry about what I pressed. I just hate my laptop, right? His question actually was, what does David make of football today? And considering David's just said he doesn't really watch football, too much football while the cricket's on, I don't think he wants us to ask it. But David, what do you make of football today?
I love the skill, the pace, the almost poetry of how teams move through opposition now. The passing. I get a bit dismayed at a lot of sideways and backwards passing. That wouldn't have happened in our day. It was get it forward. Football's, as Terry Venables said, and Dave Sexton said, football's a forward-thinking, forward-passing, forward-moving game. I see a lot of players, passing comfortably sideways, not trying. Trevor Brooking, for instance, would pass through defenders, pass through into the front, into Pop Robson, into myself, into Stuart Pearson, and pass through the opposition. I see lots and lots of really good players passing sideways and even backwards to the defenders, so that very safe passing. That wouldn't have happened in our day. You'd have been sorted out by the manager at half-time. Bloody get it forward, get it up there. So the game is different now. I think much more. The lads are much fitter, I think, than we were. In terms of how they eat. The dieting. We'd have fish and chips and bangers and mash and stuff like that, and think nothing of it. But obviously train very hard. These lads train probably harder and more technically. I think technically they're probably better now than we were. But that doesn't necessarily mean the game's better. I think sometimes the spectacle is people making mistakes. Back in our day, making mistakes kind of created excitement because you've got a chance to score. Now that it's very clinical. But I do love watching. I love watching the good teams. Manchester City, I love watching them play because just of the way they play. The standard of their players. Whatever you say about them having all that money, they haven't wasted it, have they? They've spent well, but top players. De Bruyne is my favourite player in the Premiership, mainly because he reminds me so much of Trevor Brooking. He just doesn't fanny about. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he puts balls in dangerous situations. Just like Trevor did, putting early balls into the box. Even though he's facing the wrong way, he'll put the ball into the box for Aguero 3 seasons ago to get on the end of it. It must have been a dream for Aguero to play with De Bruyne, just like it was for me to play with Trevor Brooking. Knowing that the ball is going to be delivered into the box behind their back line, and if you make the right move, you get on the end of it and tap it in from 3 yards, and everyone thinks you're the hero. Well, it's actually Brooking's the hero, or De Bruyne in this case. So I do love watching football, but I'm not stupid enough to think it was better in our day. It was a different spectacle, but it was something I think the fans appreciated a little bit more in our days somehow, because I think they resonated with, they probably could think there could be me out there, that could be them, someone sat in the stand. Whereas now, I think the players are on so much money now that they don't feel the same wavelength as the fans. I don't think. Maybe I'm getting that wrong, but
no,
I do get that. The one, who was the lad the brilliant, skillful player who played for us 3 seasons ago, but he didn't try a leg. Yarmolenko. Did I get the right one? On the right wing.
Yeah.
Fantastic, skillful player, but Christ, there's times when, I think, are you doing the job here? Are you actually playing for West Ham here? Who was the other one? There's Yarmolenko. There's another one very similar.
Oh, we've had loads like that in recent years.
Was Yarmolenko the Ukrainian?
Yeah.
Who was the other one? We had someone else on the
Jack
right.
Wilshere?
No, a foreigner.
Payet, a few years ago.
No, Payet was brilliant. No, wide player. It's Yarmolenko.
Oh, is he? He's not talking about my friend, is he, Rob?
Came from Stoke.
Oh no.
Arnautovic.
Arnautovic, yeah, very similar, in the way I look at him and think, I couldn't have been him out there. I know I'm not as skillful as him, but crikey, try a bit harder. Give something to the fans.
Yeah.
You've paid a lot of money to come and watch you. Yeah. Technically, probably better than where you were. Whether the game is better for that, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I do love watching football. Yeah, in answer to the question.
Fair. What else we got in the live chat, Duke?
Trying to find a couple of people that haven't actually had an answer or a question. Even might be the better shout. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with this one from Ruby Tuesday. Which is the only. Well, I've got that one and Cyber's question. I said, do you think there's actually too much money in football now? Do you reckon that the game is, wages and transfer fees have got a little bit ridiculous?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to say that, haven't you? You've got to say when someone's on £100,000 a week. I mean, good grief. But yeah, you can't. A footballer's not going to say, "Oh, sorry, I know you've offered me £100,000 a week, but no, I'll have £50,000 a week." They'll take the money, won't they? You'd be not to. So you can't blame the players. The one thing I think has changed, and I did get onto it a little bit in the last question, was that I don't think the players now understand the fans like we did. We were fans who became footballers. Now the lads who are out there now, I don't think they feel they're on. I think they feel they're a bit better than the fans. That might sound harsh, but as I said, we were working class footballers, and I don't mean working class in that we had overalls on in the morning and went on a bike to work. I mean, we were working class in that if we did well, we earn more money, like a salesman. If he does well that month, then he'll earn more money because he sold more. If I did well in training, I got picked in the first team. If I got picked, I got my appearance money. If I got picked, we played and we won, I got my win bonus. So the better we did, the more money we earned. So in that respect, we were working class. And I think the way the money has changed the game now is that they're on that much money. That doesn't matter to them, does it? I was on £800 a week at West Ham, £250 appearance money, and we were on £250 a point 40 years ago. So if I'm picked and we win the first game of the season, that's my £800 basic and £1,000 because with three points, £750, my appearance money £250. That was a lot of money 40 years ago. A lot of money. If we didn't lose, we moved up. If we didn't lose that first game, we moved up to £500 a point. If we didn't lose that second game, in other words, if we drew those first game and the second game, our third game, we were on £750 a point. 40 years ago. So we win. What's 750 times 3? 2,250. 2,250 plus me 800 basic, £3,000 and 50 plus me £250 appearance money for being picked. £3,400 40 years ago per week. If I played on the Tuesday in a midweek game, that bonus and that appearance money came in again. I could walk away that Thursday with £6,000 on my wage slip 40 years ago. Now, that was a lot of money. And I know they're on big money now. But can you imagine earning that much money in those days? And can you imagine how hard you trained on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to make sure when that team sheet was pinned up, I was on it? Can you understand that, guys?
Yeah.
No, see, Rob will back me up here, David. I've banged this drum since we've been doing these videos. 19 months now, and I said, you know, you worked for your money, as you just said. You worked hard in training, you know. As a goal scorer, I don't know, you didn't mention it there, but things like goal scoring bonuses, you know, you alluded to earlier. If you didn't score, you felt like you hadn't done your part. Even if the team had won, you were a goal scorer, wanted to score goals. I've always said that in this day and age, it's too easy just to put in Antonio, for instance, as our striker, as our goal scorer. He wasn't doing it at the end of last season, yet he was still taking home his full wages. He didn't have to earn that. That was just there. You're saying there about being picked and everything else. I keep banging the drum about going back to that appearance fee, that having a basic wage, but then having your appearance fee, etc.
It couldn't happen now because the players wouldn't accept it, and mainly their agents wouldn't accept it. So it has to be the
time. Yeah.
So we were incentives. It was incentivized. Yeah. If I did well in training, I'm picked, more money. If I do well on the pitch and I get a couple of goals, we draw, more money. Get another goal, we've won, more money. And that's what I mean by working class. We earn that money. Now, these lads out there now, they earn that much. It won't matter that much to them if they do get a draw or if they do lose, because they're still going to get 50 grand a week. You know, we had that incentive to. I remember being on games, maybe at Upton Park or at Anfield or at Old Trafford, 1-0 up, 5 minutes to go, muddy pitch, knackered, Billy Bonds, come on lads, there's 750 quid on this. And 750 quid 40 years ago was a lot of money.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half's work. And you know, wow, Bonzo's right, come on. And you fought and fought, even though you're on your last legs for that last 5 minutes to make sure United or Liverpool didn't equalise and take that 500 quid off you, because it was then you were back to 250 for the draw.
Yeah.
You know, so you work for that. And now that's not there for the players. And that is a difference, I think, in the players, that they're on so much money. What's it matter? What's the difference between 90 grand a week and 80 grand a week? You know, how much money can you spend? So the game's different. I don't resent that from the players. Good luck to them. I wish I'd been in that situation myself. But I wasn't. I was at an era where it suited me to be better, to make sure if I'd had a pint on a Sunday night or a couple of beers, I'd run that off on Monday morning in training and make sure I'm right for the game. Because as I said, if that team gets pinned up on Friday and I'm in it, that's an extra 250 for me, with the potential to earn nearly another £1,000 on top of my basic wage. So that was huge for me then. But it suited me. You know, I needed that drive. I needed that push. And it was a good time for me. But when people say to me, I bet you were, you know, the money you were on back then, I bet you wish you were now. I said, look, I don't often quote those figures I've quoted to you on this podcast, but that's what I was on back then 40 years ago. It was a bloody lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the money in the game today is just mind blowing. I mean, you've got some players. I mean, you said 100 grand a week. I mean, there's some players that are on £500,000 a week. It's just absolutely mind boggling.
But I mean, to me, it takes that incentive away. You know, that incentive to win, that incentive to be picked, that incentive to do well for the fans who've probably earned 350 quid that week.
Yeah.
For getting up at 6 in the morning and getting home at 5 at night. And I was conscious of that. It probably sounds a bit daft, and I don't mean to be condescending, but I was conscious of the fact that if I hadn't been a footballer, I would have been a fan. Not at Upton Park, it would have been maybe Newcastle, because that was my team when I was a kid. But I would have been a fan there, and you know, I was conscious of the fact that whatever the fans want to see, the least they expect is effort from the players who are out there.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of quick fire questions, if I may.
Yeah, go and fire away. My wife's gone to sleep now. My chance is gone.
Oh, no.
That's that for another 6 weeks.
Oh, we might as well keep you for hours then. No. We won't do that. Right. These are just some real quick fire questions, David. And as it says there on the banner, which of your former West Ham teammates was the ... So the first one, which of your former West Ham teammates was the biggest moaner? Which one was always complaining?
Wow. Oh, bloody hell, that's a hard
every team's got one.
And if you can't think of who it was probably you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it might have been. I don't think we had anyone who like bad that way. No, I can't even think we had anyone who would be a nuisance because of that. No.
Fair enough. Which of your former West Ham teammates was the worst dressed?
Me.
Me. Go on, give us an example.
Well, brown shoes, black trousers, ludicrous outfits.
Did you sort of like wear some sort of like really outrageous flares and the old
well, everyone wore flares in the 70s, and you thought you were the bee's knees when actually you looked a jerk. But I mean, I was single, so it didn't matter to me, you know. No, my wife dresses me. Oh, you can't go in that. You can't go out in that. Well, why not? Well, you can't.
Sounds oh so familiar.
Yeah, so you have to do. Oh, so I've got to get changed again. I've done my hair. I'll mess my hair up when I put my jumper up. Never mind your hair. So all those kind of things. So, but to be honest, I didn't care. I just put on often. I put on in the morning what I'd done the night before. Because I was single, so it didn't matter.
Which of your former West Ham teammates was the worst at training?
Oh.
Everyone's got one. Everyone's got one that slacks.
Right. I'm not talking now badly about somebody who was lazy.
Yeah.
But the worst trainer in terms of he would be the last if we had a sprint, and he would be the last if we had a 3-mile run. But he was our best player, and that was Trevor.
Really?
Yeah. Trevor would be last in the sprints, last if we had a long distance run, but it didn't matter because he was our best player. So
did it on a Saturday. That's when it matters.
Of course, yeah.
Which one of your former West Ham teammates was the one you'd want by your side in a fight?
Oh, Bonzo.
And there was no hesitation on that one whatsoever, was there?
No, I kind of thought it was going to go in that direction, but did that ever happen? Did you ever need him in a little bit of a scrape?
Well, we did get in a scrape. He nearly missed the cup final, didn't he? If you remember, he had a fight with Colin Todd at Birmingham about 2 games before the FA Cup final, and nearly got suspended to miss the cup final.
Oh dear.
You know, so Bill would battle. I mean, I played against him, don't forget, and had, you know, occasions where we'd clash. But the one thing I liked about Bill more than anything was he was a man's man. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
No, you didn't swearing. You didn't fuck about with Bill. You know, you knew where you were with him. You didn't. I took the mickey out of everyone. I mean, that was my thing every day. I'd be taking the mickey out of the lads. And I didn't do that with Bill. You didn't cross Bill.
He was the governor.
Yeah, you didn't. No, he was a proper man. You know, people thought I was tough. I wasn't tough. I was just clever. I made it people in the fans, the crowd, think I was tough. I wasn't tough. I just took hits. If I threatened centre halves on the field, if that same centre half had asked me out the car park after the game, I'd be up Green Street like a flash on the without my car. Don't worry, I was daft, but I wasn't stupid.
Fair.
So, but Bill, yeah, you didn't. Yeah, you knew where you were with Bill, and you were careful around him.
Fair. Which of your former West Ham teammates was the team joker?
Oh, well, I have to take that one. That was me. I used to just, I was tricks and stunts on everybody. Ray Stewart wasn't the brightest, Ray.
Oh, no.
And so you could play tricks on Ray easily, really easily. And I used to play.
Go on.
It's difficult. They're not as funny when you talk to them. Oh, well,
yeah.
You know, people might listen to this. No, that's not all that funny, but it seems funny at the time when you do things. I had a sunbed. I bought a sunbed because I fell out with the girl I was my girlfriend. We split up, and we booked our holiday and had to cancel it, so I couldn't go on holiday. So someone said, well, if you're not going to Mallorca this year, what are you going to? I said, I'll buy a sunbed. It was the time when sunbeds just were coming out. And so I'd go into training, so September time, October, still with a bit of tan. And Ray Stewart was always white as a sheet, Ray. And he said to me, you're always brown, you. I said, well, I've got a sunbed. And I could see his eyes thinking, lighting up. I said, do you want to use it? I said, you can. Oh, he said, can I? I said, yeah. Anyway, he was coming up. I said, the only thing is, Ray, I said, we've got to be careful. They can't tire you out physically. So he can't come late in the week near a game, Monday afternoon. So, you've got plenty of time to recover. Oh, right. Okay, so he came up to me. Anyway, you could have, the recommendation from this sunbed company was you could have an hour a day on your front and then on your back. So you could have an hour on your front, an hour on your back. So I convinced Ray when he came up, he had to take all his clothes off, but he had to be careful that when the buzzer went, the time a buzzer went, he had to get off quickly because, these sunbeds, you've got to be very careful with them. So bearing in mind, you could have an hour on your front, an hour on your back per day. I told Ray that he could have 30 seconds a week on his front, that being 50 seconds on his front and 15 seconds on his back. And when he heard that buzzer, he had to get off quick. So he came up Monday from September till about December. He'd come up every Monday. And by December, I'd got him up to a minute and a half a week. On a Sunday, he could have an hour a day on. And I told the lads they were in on it. And every Tuesday, as Ray stripped off in the dressing room, like Billy Bonds or Park said, bloody hell, Super Jock, Christ, where have you been on your holidays this week? And wait, cross his sunbed, mate. And he honestly thought he was going. He was as white as a sheet. In the end, I had to kick him off. I got fed up with him coming. So by Christmas, I said, Ray, you can't come anymore. And he said, I said, I'm not okay, because it was a hassle for me. I was happened to be there, putting the sunbed on for him. So,
joke had worn off by then.
But it would worn off. But yeah, I got him up to a minute and a half a week.
Did you own up that it was a wind up all along?
No, it wouldn't. You couldn't explain that to Ray; he wouldn't understand it.
Right.
We need to get Ray. We need to get Ray on next. Yeah, we'll break it to him.
We'll find him on Twitter or something.
He'll tell you.
Which of your former West Ham teammates was the teacher's pet? So not necessarily a blatant arse kisser, but someone that was looked on more favourably by John Lyall than possibly the other members of the squad.
I don't think there was one with John. No, I honestly don't think there was.
Trevor Brooking?
No, not really. I mean, Trevor, for whatever he was, Trevor was a a lovely man. You know, I mean, best player, lovely man. Never heard him swear. Didn't drink. Boring bastard, really, when you think about it. But no, there was no one in the squad that John favoured more than anyone else. No, he was very fair with everybody. Very fair with everybody.
And the last one, which of your former West Ham teammates was the one you roomed with on away trips?
Now this, I know why this has been asked, because this is the Paul Allen story, isn't it?
No, but you're gonna have to fill in the blanks now.
Right. Well, Stuart Pearson was my roommate, because we're pals, we're strike partners, so we were mates. Lancashire, well, he's Yorkshire and I'm Lancashire, but you know, we're northern lads, so we were roommates. And anyway, Pancho got injured, and Paul Allen got called into the squad, and we came up to Manchester to play United. And John Lyle, the coach upwards, said, "Dave, you know Stuart Pearson's not fit. He's not playing in. I know he's your roommate." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I brought young Paul Allen into the squad. He's only 17, but I'm going to put him rooming with you." Right? He said, "I know you look after him. You make sure he's okay, and he'd be nervous because it'll be his debut if he does actually play." So yeah, that's fine, John. So anyway, got to Manchester hotel. Got to 8 o'clock evening meal, and then usually at about 9 o'clock after your evening meal, I would go to bed on a Friday, probably watch an hour. Maybe Minder would be on telly or something at 9 o'clock. Watch that. Anyway, as I got up to the room, I went up to the room, 9:15, into our room, and Paul Allen's already up there in bed, in a single bed on the far side of the room as I've walked in the door. Anyway, I said, "Listen, Paul," I said, "I don't know how you're going to take this." And he, "What? And he had a squeaky voice, Paul. And, "Yeah, all right, Dave, yeah, all right." I said, because I said, Stuart Pearson's my roommate. I said, and when I'm away in hotels, in away games like this, I get a bit frightened. And I said, I'm all right when we're at home, because my wife, my girlfriend, Christine, she comes down from Manchester and she looks after me in bed. I said, but anyway, I said, Stuart Pearson lets me get in bed with him, and he cuddles me. He cuddles me for about 5 minutes, but once he realizes I've gone to sleep, he goes out and gets in the other bed. So if it'll be all right, I'll pop in with you. And he went. I've never seen anyone go white as like Paul did. And I went into the bathroom to clean my Hampsteads, and I was absolutely shaking. I was laughing that much, like giggling to myself, thinking of he'd actually take, instead of like one of the other lads, "Go on, fuck yourself, go and behave." But Ollie was so young and like 17, frightened of a first team player. I mean, imagine me, a 30-year-old lad, getting in bed with him. So anyway, I came out, cleaned my teeth. Said, right, okay. I had no intention of doing this, obviously. But he kind of made it for me, because he said, "Dave, if it's all right," he said, "I don't think I'll bother." I said, "I beg your pardon." "I don't think I'll bother with that, yeah." "Oh, right." I said, "Well, that's fine, isn't it?" I said, "I've got a lot of goals this season. John Lyle trusts me to look after you. If I play badly tomorrow because I've not had a good night's sleep, he's going to blame you, because I said, "Paul, fine. If that's okay, I'll get him in. I'll get him in my own bed, fine." And so I was like putting that on. Anyway, I thought I'll have one last go. So I got into bed, and again I was laughing to myself, daft to myself. I said, "Paul," and as I was lying in my bed, there's probably like 2 foot between the two single beds, and I said, "Paul, I understand that thing. You don't. Well, yeah, fair enough." I said, "But if I'm going to get any sleep at all, you're going to have to hold my hand." And I put my hand out, and he put his hand out and held my hand. And I said, "Get off! I'm only joking, you dick." And that was that. But yeah. So that was one. I mean, it wasn't a very nice
Poor
trip.
lad.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was about my stunts, I never thought them out beforehand. They just kind of spur of the moment thing. So it was just because Ollie was there that, I mean, I had no intention of sleeping. Yeah. Stuart Pearson lets me get in bed with him, and he cuddles me.
Oh, I wasn't aware of the story. It was just a random question that I thought up, and I just thought, yeah, who was it? When you said the Paul Allen story, I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, Paul. Yeah, Pancho was my roommate, but that the one-off when he couldn't play him, Ollie was in the room. That was that was the trick on him, and
that is beautiful.
He won't have it. Actually, if I tell that story at an event and he's there, he's shaking his head and said, "No, it didn't happen." He
well, he would, wouldn't he?
He's in complete denial about it, but it did happen. Yeah.
I at the moment is saying, how did he go the next day?
I think he did all right, Ollie. It might not have been Manchester, it might have been Liverpool, but it's certainly up north. You know, it was a trip up north where we had to stay overnight, and Ange couldn't play. It was probably his debut, I think. Might not have been. He might have played at home in his debut, but it was certainly one of his very first games. But yeah,
honestly, right. Well, I think we've probably had you for long enough, David. I know you say
we could end it on that. And
well, I've got one last story for you. If you want a story,
go on.
Bring them on. I'm loving this.
Well, I could go on all night, but it's not fair on you.
When we're in training the one day, and Paul Allen just got in the squad and just trained. We had a five-a-side at the end of training, a 20-minute five-a-side game, and Paul was on my side. And George Cowie, would you remember George Cowie?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, he was an apprentice. He was the head apprentice at the same time as Paul was an apprentice. I think George was second year apprentice. Paul was first year, 17. Right. George would have been, but George was the head apprentice, so he was in charge of the apprentice. So anyway, my nickname with the players, with all the lads, was Norman. That was my nickname. I know Psycho was the fans, but my nickname with the lads was Norman. Long story why, but anyway, it was Norman. Anyway, we're playing this five-a-side with Ollie was on my side in this five-a-side, and during the game, I got the ball, and he went, "Yes, Norman," and I looked at him. I didn't give him the ball, but I looked at him, nodded. Right. So after training, I said, I got hold of George Cowie. I said, George, just one thing. I said, this little Paul Allen lad. He said, yeah, I know. Has he not cleaned your boot? I said, no, nothing like that. I said, it's just that he called me Norman in training. I said, yeah, I can't have that 17-year-old lad calling me the nickname the lads give me. So I said, you just have a word with him, just to be a bit careful around the senior players. I was only joking again, by the way. So Joe, I'm sorry, Dave, I realised. That's all right. Just have a quiet word with him, I'll straighten him up. Anyway, Ollie came to me later that day. And he said, Dave, I'm really sorry. I called you Norman, didn't I? I said, well, that's all right, Paul. It's one of those things. The lads call me Norman. You've called me. It's no big deal. He said, well, what should I call you then in the future? I said, well, for the respect that you need to give me, I said, you need to call me Mr. Cross. Oh, right, okay. So we played Liverpool away the next Saturday.
Oh, no.
Long ball came up the middle. I'm getting up to head it on, and I'm aware of one of our players coming to support me, and I'm going to flick it on for him, and it was Ollie, little Paul. And as he got next to me to go past me to get the flick on, yes, Mr. Cross. And
Alan, in the middle of a league game
at Anfield.
Jesus.
And as I think the ball went out for a goal kick, and as we went out with Red Climbers taking the goal kick, and Alan Hansen said to me, he said, have I just heard what I think I've heard? I said, well, why? He said, did he call you Mr. Cross? I said, he did. What's that? I said, Alan, it's not worth telling you the story. I said, but yeah. And anyway, for about 3 games, he was calling me Mr. Cross.
Oh my God! You let it go for 3 games before you did you break it to him gently, Paul?
Yeah, I said, Ollie, that was only messing about. I said, you don't have to call me Mr. Cross. I said,
he doesn't come across very bright at 17 years of age.
He was just innocent,
naive,
naive, exactly, naive, and just wanted to do the best and be right. It's just a lovely lad, really nice lad. And in fact, taking advantage of him like I did wasn't fair, but that's growing up, isn't it?
If he'd have been on the building site or something, you'd have sent him out for a sort of like a bubble in your spirit level, or a glass hammer or something.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly the same sort of thing. But you have to call me Mr. Cross from now on. So,
that is beautiful.
I love it.
That is beautiful.
Absolutely love it.
Right, Duke. Anything you want to say before we knock this on the head?
No, that's fine. That's no problem. Where are we now? Christ, is that the right time? 11.
Yeah, we're just up past 11 coming up. David, I just want to say thank you. Like I said at the start, my dad bought me this scarf for the 80 FA Cup finals when I started. The guys in the chat have absolutely loved listening to your stories. The comments that are coming through are absolutely brilliant. I just want to say thank you. Like the guys have said earlier, thank you for your service to our club. Thank you for everything you did in the years, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, my man.
No, it's fine. I'd love to speak to you guys. Like I said, I have said this before, and it's not being condescending. The best 5 years of my football career were at West Ham. You don't really get the chance to kind of be with the fans after the game and be able to say thanks for what they did for me, because their respect for me made me a better player. That's why I got all those goals for West Ham, because I was comfortable trotting out at 5-3 at Upton Park in front of those fans. So those fans did a great deal for me and my career. And this is, if you like, engaging in this way and going down to events and meeting fans that I didn't have the chance to speak to when I was a player is a big thing for me, because it's a way I can say thank you for what they did for me.
Well, I'd just like to say on behalf of Duke and myself and everybody that's been interacting in the live chat and the people that have sent in video clips, and to be honest, we've got lots more questions, but I couldn't keep you too much longer, David. Honestly, your missus will go spare, and probably mine will as well, in fairness. So, David, it's been an absolute delight, an honour, a privilege to host you tonight. And I'd love to get you on again, because I'm sure you've got plenty more that you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, well, you never know. But maybe me and Pancho have got an event down there in April, I think. If it'd be nice to meet you guys face to face.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, definitely.
Well, I think I've got Len Herbert on my my friends on Facebook, so I'm sure I can tap him up for a bit of info.
I'm pretty sure it's one of Len's dues. Yeah.
Where is this one in particular?
Oh, good question. I think they sometimes have them at Dagenham Football Ground.
Victoria Road.
Yeah, I think it might not be there, but it's one of West Ham. The Mandeville Promotions, I think, is Lane's.
Yeah.
You'd find it on there I think it's something like middle of April, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to one of his events in December. I've got it's the 92-93 promotion team that they're doing a little thing down by Tower Bridge on early December.
Good.
So yeah, I'll see if I can tap him up for a bit of info, and I'll
do
wander
that.
down and I'll get you a pint.
Yeah, but that'd be excellent news. I'll buy you one back.
No, David, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just going to finish off. I'm going to do my usual wrap up, just to say to people, if they can support the. Sorry,
can I go to bed?
Give us another 50 seconds or so.
Yeah.
I'll get this out of the way quickly. Right, okay, guys, please don't forget to donate to the Iron Supporting Food Bank charity. This operates in the Newham Borough area to put food on the plates of families fallen on stony ground in this cost of living crisis. I have put it in the live chat. If you can click on the link to help this charity out, please do so. We would greatly appreciate it. No donation is too small. Give generously. You know it makes sense. And something else that makes sense. Please don't forget to like, comment on, and share the stream to your YouTube chat, your social media platform. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for alerts and new content. As always, we thank you very much indeed for your support. Duke, what are we, my friend?
We're fucking massive, and the man below is an absolute legend.
He is the legend that is David Cross. And all I'm going to say, guys, come on, you Irons.